Hello.
Sorry. Check, check. Check 1, 2, check. Awesome. Okay, hold on, I gotta get this grease stuff off my hand. Better not use the bathroom while I have this microphone. Check, check 1, 2, check, check. Here, let me mute it for just a minute. Test 1 2. Check Big Mike. Check Big Mike with Keith. Mike and Keith.
Check. Big Mike. Check.
Okay, probably a little bit louder on the Big Mike. Okay, Big Mike, a little louder. Test 1 2. Check, 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 check. 1 2 3. Is it that? That's a little louder, right? So Big Mike goes to Big Keith.
Check. 1 2. Check.
We're good. So 1 2 3. Put this on. Okay, I think testing this mic out. How's it sound? Sound pretty good? Not too loud, not too, just about right? Awesome. And we will be starting pretty soon. We've got about 12 minutes. Hey, how are you? Good to see you. How's life? Okay, test 1, 2, check, check, check. Okay, those people who are online watching us on Zoom right now, Kyle, can we get a thumbs up if they can hear me? And can you see me, or are you still on Fortress Fred? Oh, really? Hi, guys. Hi, everybody. So good to see you. Well, kinda. Cause so good to be seen. I guess I can't see you, but I wish I could. So how are we doing? Can they hear us? Okay, we got thumbs up. Awesome. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Everybody, make sure you turn off your cell phones or mute them, right? So that we don't have that problem tonight. Okay, and then I'm going to ask you one thing also. Are you running the mic? Okay, so for some reason, last time when you stand here in front of the mic or in front of the camera, it focuses on your head instead of me. Yeah, so just remember, if you do stop right there, just kind of kneel down or something, and then it'll focus on me. Does that make sense? All right, then we got the mic ready to go. And I'm just going to give a little bit of a headway for those of you who are online. This is being filmed for the Thrivalist Master Course. Many of you guys know about the Thrivalist Master Course. It's the #1 best emergency preparedness course in the world, and I can say that because I've been in this industry for, 14 years, 15 years professionally. I know what's out there, and I know what people have done. Nobody I know of has spent over 4,000 hours refining a course like we have. Nobody I know of has spent over $200,000 to $300,000 in mistakes to learn what I've learned. ChatGPT can't teach you this stuff, okay? This stuff I had to learn from Hard Knocks, okay? We're talking, 20 plus thousands of hours of experience. We put this out like 8 years ago, and I'm refilming it because every year I put in thousands of hours of learning. So that's what I'm doing, is updating stuff from the last 8 years of learning. So you guys are going to get a lot of cool stuff, okay? And this is going to be put in the course, but I need everybody online to listen to this because it's super important. There's going to be people who are going to say, I can't see the slides, I can't see the screen. That's intentional, because what's happening is it's going to be filmed with me. You know, not the best thing, but it's me. I have to do what I can, right? It's going to be filmed with me, and then afterwards we're going to add the slides. So those people online, just know if you're a Thrivalist member, a Thrivalist Master Course member, you're going to be able to see all the stuff with all the slides later on. You're just going to hear the information today. So if anybody comes in late and they say, I can't see the slides, what you do is you type them and say, oh, he told us ahead of time that he's not showing the slides for those online because it's going to be edited in later. Okay, so if you wouldn't mind helping me out with that, can I get a thumbs up online so that Kyle can say that, make sure everybody heard me, everything's good? Kyle, let me know if you get a thumbs up from someone. The other thing is the master course. If you're not part of the master course, you better do it. Literally, you can get better prepared in 90 days or less than most people can get prepared in 10 to 15 years of doing this. That's what it is. I mean, like I'm the former director of entrepreneur development for the state of Utah. I've done over 30 companies. I've done all this different business and everything else. The truth is, every single day I'm learning something new. And guess what? When I want to learn something new, do you think I try to figure it out myself? No, I go find somebody who knows more than I do. All the time in business and everything else, I try to find mentors. What I'm trying to say is I don't know everything, but I know a lot. Okay? And the funny thing is, the stuff that I've learned, and I don't know if you can relate to this, I know more about preparedness than I've ever known, and I feel stupider than I've ever felt. Okay? I feel like there's so many questions I don't have answers to yet, because every day another question, another idea, and all this stuff, and it's just they're more refined now. You know, I'm getting, like I mentioned before, I'm getting into hypochlorous acid. I'm getting into different types. I mean, just all these scientific things that most people would never even consider in their lifetimes. But it's just getting fun. But it's a lot of questions. But the truth is, if you can stand on the shoulders of somebody who knows more than you, you cut years off of your learning. You cut thousands of dollars in making mistakes, thousands of hours in research. And then once you have that research done, then you can add to it with everything else you want to learn on top of it. Let's go ahead and sit down so we can get started. And okay, so let's start. Is Kyle, we good online? One reset on the back camera. Oh, which one? The back one? Like turn it off and turn it back on? Do you have the remotes? I think they're by you. Oh, Okay, why don't you get the remotes? Hey, Celeste, can you get the remote? Oh, yes. Okay, so I'll just hold off until you're ready. So quiet. It's so funny. Why is everybody so quiet? What is up? Everyone's so quiet here. You can make noise. We got some time. Oh, is that what it was? Okay, now you can interrupt. I actually enjoy good jokes and everything else and a lot of fun stuff. So yeah, whenever you're ready, Kyle, we'll get started. Let's see if there's anything else. Did you need to turn off the camera completely or no? Oh, okay. I was watching it from. Oh, yeah, I see it moving. And then make sure we only have one audio going because sometimes if there's two, we'll get an echo. Let me just double check it. Test 1, 2. Yep, one audio. Okay. It's good? Okay. Yeah.
We're going to keep an eye on you.
Are you serious? Are you serious? I love this.
Take it off.
That is so cool. Where did you get this? You going to keep an eye on you? Is that what it is? That is so fun. I love it. Awesome. Thank you. I like having you here. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Everybody's muted. Not muted, but your phones are muted. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Awesome. We have an awesome presentation today that we're going to be talking about temperature regulation. And a lot of people don't know what that means, but I'll explain that in a few words. First of all, some people live in really cold areas. Can you name a couple cold areas that you guys would recognize in the United States or other places in the world? I mean, Alaska, definitely. What else? Salt Lake today, huh? Yeah, it's pretty cold today, isn't it? Greenland, yep. Okay. There's some places that literally those people have been living there for ages and they're used to it. If you were to pop them into some place like Arizona, for example, a lot of people would die. They wouldn't be able to handle it. They went from Greenland or Siberia or who knows where, stick them in Arizona during the summer, they just can't handle it. On the flip side, if you take somebody from Arizona and stick them in a cold place, it's the same idea. Now, I'm going to show you this little picture right here. This was just a few weeks ago. Those are my kids playing in the backyard. Okay, isn't that a cool little picture right there? The funny thing about it is, until you acclimate to the hot or the cold, depending on where you come from or where you're at, until you acclimate to it, it can be lethal. Now, imagine those little kids playing out there. I didn't tell them to go play. They were just having fun. Do you see like bare feet? Do you see no shoes on, just enjoying it? You know what temperature that is? 35 degrees. 35 degrees. But they acclimated, so they can handle it. Okay? Now, if you're acclimating for hot areas, it takes 7 to 14 days, 1 to 2 weeks. So get in the heat, get used to it and everything else. If you're doing it for cold areas, it's a little bit longer. It's actually 10 to 21 days. It's up to about 3 weeks. But right now, you guys know we're at the later end of winter and people are handling the cold pretty easily. You see people out there in short shirts, t-shirts and everything else, and it's still like 30, 40 degrees and people are totally fine with it. If you've heard of this movie, Society of the Snow, has anybody watched that? You have? Awesome. So you know what I'm talking about. These people were, it was a group of rugby, excuse me. This was a group of rugby, what is it? A rugby team. This was a rugby team from Chile, not Argentina. Where is it? It was Uruguay, that's right. So this was a rugby team from Uruguay, and they were flying over the Andes, and their plane crashed. Nobody could find them for a long period of time. The nights would get down to -20, and the hottest it possibly could have gone is about 32 degrees Fahrenheit, which is still freezing. they were taking their shirts off. They were getting super hot on those days when it was getting close to 32 degrees, you know. And it shows in the movie how they were just burning up out there, you know, just outside, just trying to handle the heat, which we would look at and say, that's pretty cold, right? And so that's part of acclimating. Same thing with Phoenix, Arizona, like we talked about. People will be out there and it'll get up to 117 degrees. Different parts of Arizona, different parts of Nevada will get up into the 120s, okay? But people get used to it. In fact, there was one time my brother and I went to Death Valley. Have you heard of that? It's the hottest part in all of the United States. And it's lower than any other place in the United States. And my brother and I decided that we wanted to find Shangri-La. And it was just a thing we wanted to do. I mean, we were like teenagers or early 20s or something like that. So what we did is we ended up getting these backpacks and filling it with tons of water. And so you can imagine how heavy those are. Now, at the time, I didn't know anything about electrolytes. Okay, I didn't understand heat and everything else. So we're coming from a cool place to a hot place, and we put these things on, and we start just hiking into Death Valley, and we're going to find an oasis. We know there's one in there somewhere, and we call it Shangri-La, right? And so we're going through, and we're not finding this thing, and we're just hiking and hiking and hiking. The stupid thing is we had all this water, and we weren't drinking it. And we got to a point literally that we laid down on the floor and couldn't move. I mean, we just fell asleep exhausted. I woke up and there was lines of white on my face from salt out of my body, okay? But we learned a lot from that experience. And we learned that if you don't acclimate, you can actually kill yourself. You gotta be really, really careful. Extreme temperatures, hot or cold, during long-term emergencies can affect your mood, your sleep, your productivity, your productivity and your health, excuse me, your productivity and your health and safety. And it can be, if you don't do temperature regulation if you don't do temperature regulation the right way, it can be miserable and dangerous. So I'm going to ask you a question. When the utilities are down and there isn't gas for heating or electricity for cooling your home, what can you do? What kind of ideas would come through your mind? What would you do? Okay, let's go get the microphone and let's just mention a couple ideas. Right there.
Warm clothing. That way you could be active and do things that are necessary for preparedness. And as far as those rugby athletes, they were athletic. And I recognize fitness as being important. You don't, I'm a bicycle racer, and when someone says it's hot or cold, I'll say, how could you tell?
Mm-hmm. Awesome, good, thank you. Let's go another one up here.
Huddle together for body heat if you have other people with you.
Yeah, or animals or anything like that, right? Yeah, awesome, good idea. What else? What other things would you do to regulate the heat or the cold if it came on suddenly and you didn't have utilities? What other ideas would you use? Go ahead.
Or too much heat, cool towel or a wet towel or rag over your shoulders. Head.
Yeah, over your neck, in your armpits, your groin, on your wrists, you know, anything where the blood's going, right? Good job. Awesome. Let's go maybe one more. What else would you do for heat or cold? Let's go right here.
Move to the basement.
Ah, exactly. Here in Utah, we have basements. Where I came from in California, we didn't have basements. So it's a big difference, right? But you go underground and all of a sudden it's so much cooler, isn't it? Because of the air or the ground around it. So when it comes to losing heat in your body, there's 4 major ways. One of them is radiation. So it's heat loss through infrared rays emitted from the body to cooler objects in the environment, similar to how a warm stove radiates heat. And then there's conduction, which is a direct transfer of heat from the body to a cooler surface it's touching. Like when you sit on a cold bench, you can feel that cold going into your bum, right? And it just gets really uncomfortable. The next one is convection, which is heat loss because air is moving by you, right? It's pushing the heat away from you and it's taking it from your body. And then there's evaporation, which is heat loss. Boy, I did 4, it should have been 5, right? So there's actually 5 different ways that your body can lose heat, primary ways that your body can lose heat. And there's evaporation, which is heat loss through sweat, where the skin evaporates where skin evaporates water from your body into the air, and that's how your body is able to cool itself down. And finally, there's respiration, where you're losing heat through breathing. Okay, so those are the 5 ways. Now, how does your body gain heat? It's very similar. The first way would be radiation. You got it, okay? Same thing that we were talking about, like sitting in front of the fire, or you can gain heat, for example, by sitting in front of a fire or sitting in the sun. You saw my kids in that picture, right? The reason why they were able to do that is because of radiation, because they were in the heat of the sun, or basically the rays of the sun. If they were to go just a few feet over to there, you saw the shade, right? If they were just to go a little bit into the shade right there, it would be really cold. Next one is conduction. When you touch a hot surface, for example, the heat will transfer directly to your body through physical contact. Convection allows the warm air currents to transfer heat to your body as they move around you, so a hotter source to your body. Next is metabolic heat production, where your body can generate its own heat by physical interaction or physical activity. That was it. Oh my goodness, I am way off, aren't I? So there was only 4 on that one. Okay, so let me finish that one up so I can edit it in right. And then the last one is metabolic heat production, where your body can generate its own heat through chemical reactions in the body when you exercise. So in this section, we're going to cover 2 things. First of all, we're going to teach you ways to stay warm when it's cold. And second, super easy, ways to stay cooler when it's hot, when you have no utilities or very minimal utilities. So let's go ahead and get started with the first one, and I'll see you on the next video. Wow, we got through one of them. Okay, we're making progress, yeah. Okay, let's see how I start this one out. Okay, that's what it is, all right. And there's 4 things on the next one, okay? Okay, we are back and we're talking about, that was too loud, hold on a second. Okay, we are back and we're talking about a temperature. It's still pretty loud. Do you hear that feedback a little bit, or it's like? Okay, let's do it. All right, we are back and we're talking about temperature regulation when it's cold. I'm going to give you a ton of different suggestions, and the reason I'm giving you a ton of different suggestions is because we have so many people online, and they're from all different places of the United States. And so one thing might work for you, but it might not work for somebody else. So this is just going to be a smorgasbord of ideas, and you're going to be able to pick the things that are going to work the best for you. There are 4 suggestions to consider. Number 1, pre-insulate your home before an emergency happens. Number 2, have extra insulation that you can actually bring out and use during an emergency if needed. Number 3, I'm going to teach you a bunch of off-grid house heating solutions that you can put in place before an emergency. And number 4, if you don't have any of that stuff working, or it's not working well enough, there's going to be additional ways you can stay warm during an emergency. Let's go ahead and get started with pre-insulate your home. First of all, you need to choose the type of insulation that works for your home. There's maps online, and I'll just show you this picture real quick. There's maps online that actually take into effect the moisture in your area and the heat or the cold of your area. Okay? I'll try to get a link that I can put underneath this video for you guys to be. I'll try to get a link to be able to put under this video to be able to help you out if I can find a good one to show you. But when you find out that information, the moisture levels, and you find out the heat and the cold of your area, you'll know what type of insulation you should be putting in your attic, underneath your house, or anywhere else. Number 2 is pre-insulate your attic. That's just one of the first things you should be doing. If you haven't insulated your attic the right way for your climate, get that done. Next, you want to insulate your walls. Okay, you want blow-in foam boards. You want blow-in walls. Man, you notice I get a little nervous when I have to do a presentation. If I don't do a presentation, I can just talk it as much as I want to. You can do blow-in insulation, or you can do foam walls, or anything else you want that works for you. And make sure if you have a crawl space underneath your house, put insulation underneath there as well, so you're not getting cold and hot going up and down underneath your house as well. By the way, a lot of the things that I'm sharing with you here for taking care of cold works for heat as well. Sometimes it's just a little tiny bit of a tweak, but it works for heat as well. Insulating garages. Okay, we have an insulated garage. I didn't have one in my last place. What a world of difference. Okay, you get into the garage and things aren't freezing, they're not getting too hot. It's just such an amazing thing to do. It's not difficult to do. In fact, if you look at this picture right here, I put, in fact, if you look at this picture right here, you have a guy putting in regular insulation into his garage door. What I found is if you look at this NGX, the foam board, it actually works a little bit better. So that's my little tidbit of information. You can also put the foam boards with the reflective panels if you live in a hot place or anything else. Next is you're going to be, I think I missed a, did I? No, it's there. I just put it in the wrong order. Okay, that's good to know. I'll have to change that someday. Next is you want to air seal anything that air can get through to. Okay, cold air or hot air. Are we on the cold? We're on the cold. So you want to insulate anything where cold air can get through. Electrical outlets, lights, light switches, those little can lights at the very top. Anything where air can get through, you want to make sure you insulate those as well. Insulate your pipes, your water heater pipes, your regular pipes, so nothing freezes, and also you can preserve the warmth of whatever hot water you might have, and you want to keep that as well. This is a little thing I found online which is really cool. This is called phase change materials, or PCMs. This example right here is soybean oil that they put within foil, and what happens is it heats up slowly and it solidifies slowly. So while it's heating up, it's actually retaining the heat, and it'll retain the heat similar to a 12-inch slab of concrete. So you look at how thin that little thing is. 1.5 inches can retain heat up to about 12 inches of regular concrete. So that's a pretty cool little thing you want to put in there as well. One of the easiest and simplest and cheapest things anyone can do is seal all your leaks. Go around to your windows, your doors, and seal everything. Use caulking, use weather stripping, okay? You can put wooden doors, heavy wooden doors with insulation if they're metal doors. Anything where the heat can't get through the doors or windows very easily, you want to take care of those. I like to install storm doors where you have 2 layers of protection where it has an airspace in between. So you have a glass door on the outside, then your regular door. And there's also door draft stoppers that you can put underneath the door. And you have door sweeps, if you've ever seen those as well. And those help air from coming underneath the door. For those of you who want to install these, there's thermal insulated doors as well. You'll notice right here in the picture that this has a magnet in between. And if the door ever opens up, it keeps cold air from coming in. And it's just really easy to get in and out because you just push it and then it plops right back in with the magnets. Isn't that pretty cool? You can do it to any of your doors, and you can also do windows as well if you needed to. For those of you here in Utah in cold areas like Wisconsin and everything else, you've heard of double pane and triple pane windows, where they put some type of gas inside. They'll add different films to the outside as well to be able to insulate your house even better and keep the cold from going in and out through the windows. You can also install storm windows on the outside of those windows, which is a little bit more expensive. Or if you want to, you can put window inserts on the inside, which is a little less expensive. And that creates kind of a double pane as well. Even if you have double or triple pane windows, it's not a bad idea to get these type of inserts. You can actually buy cheap ones if you need to. There's these plastic films where they have magnets or some type of Velcro around the edges, and you can just stick it on during hot or cold winters or hot summers to create an extra insulation, and just take it off when you don't need it. This is good for emergencies as well because you just pull it out when you need it, pop it back on, and you're able to use it anytime you need to. Some people purchase this window film plastic also, take a hair dryer and then just kind of put it on there, and it creates another added layer of protection, just like a double or triple pane window kind of would. Does that make sense? Okay. Next is thermal curtains. This is just an added layer of protection where the cold doesn't come through the curtains as easily. And if you have a dark interior of the curtain, it actually absorbs the heat from the sun, keeping your house a little bit warmer. Does that make sense? Did it really? Yeah, I meant on the inside. Yeah, thank you. Can you write that down to remind me? Okay. And yeah, dark on the window facing side is what I wanted to say. So dark, so that's dark on the window facing side. Does that make sense? Okay, so it's absorbing the heat. There's also these curtains that have a really good insulation in them. There's just so many different types of curtains out there that you can find. The insulated blinds, have you seen these honeycomb blinds? You know what I'm talking about? That actually traps heat and cold within it and acts as an extra layer of protection during the hot and cold seasons. So that's something that helps a lot also with off-grid protection. And some people also some people that live in very windy and snowy places, what they'll do is they'll actually let trees grow up to create a wind protection, especially if you live close to a canyon where that wind just every single day, right? You know what I'm talking about, some of you that live close to a canyon. And it'll actually stop the snow and it'll slow down that wind so the wind chill doesn't get into your house as much and doesn't get you as cold as much. It's just an extra layer of protection. It takes a little bit of time because you got to grow it. Let's talk about skylights. I like skylights personally. I think it's a great way to be able to light a house during an emergency. It's just excellent, but it's also a great way to lose a lot of heat. And if you're going to do a skylight, make sure you have some type of thermal protection where that heat gets blocked from going out either from the inside or the outside of the skylight. And this is a big thing. We live in the northern hemisphere. I used to live in Brazil, different story, okay? But here, where we live right now, the sun hits the south side of every building. That's where it's hitting during the winter. That's when it's that's where it's hitting during the winter and the summer. So what I would say is strategically insulate the north sides. And you'll notice here I gave an example where this house right here doesn't have any windows on the north side. And this house right here has very few windows on the north side, allowing some light in, but not a huge amount of windows on the north side. One thing also people like to do is if you insulate the house from the outside in, not just the inside out, it actually helps protect against heat and cold. And people will take their siding off, or when their house is getting a little bit old, they'll just get everything down to the wood and they'll just put panels all the way around their house to create an extra layer of insulation around the house and then put the sidings right back up and make it look amazing. Now, let me back up a tiny bit, see what I want to say about this. These three would be fun to talk about. I'm probably going to open it up a little bit when I talk about these, if you guys don't mind, because this is pretty fun. One of the things I haven't been able to do yet is go off grid completely. I've done tons of preparedness, but right now my wife and I are looking for a place to buy land and be able to build a house. Now, many of you, when you get done with work and everything else, you like eat, watch a show, and you relax and everything else, and you're in your happy place when you're relaxing. Do you want to know my relaxation? When I'm just stressed out in my happy place, is I study how to build houses, okay? I study what could I do to be able to go off-grid completely. And I'm going to give you a couple secrets here for those of you who want to reinforce your house, build a new house, build a remote house, whatever you want to do. There's 3 things you need to look at if you want to do it right. And I'll give you the secret. Have you guys heard of ICF, insulated concrete forms? There's something better. It's called SCIP. Okay, it's structural concrete insulated panels, SCIP. Where ICF, insulated concrete forms, will be foam on the outside, rebar, and then concrete on the inside. What the SCIP does is they actually have like a 4-inch foam. You can get thicker if you want to. You can get additives in there. There's so many things you can do with that foam. And then what they'll do is they'll put a whole bunch, instead of one rebar, there's like hundreds of little tiny bars of metal in between. and they're all welded together, so it becomes a wall, and you could put pipes through it and everything else. You build a house out of this, and I've seen pictures and I've studied videos where literally a big tree will fall down on the house and where it would crush any other house. And the funny thing about it is just bent a little bit because of these wires. It's just bent where everything else would have been crushed. I look at these houses and there'll be a huge hurricane that comes in and all the houses around it are gone. And there's one standing, and they made it with skip, okay, or ICF, one of the two. But skip has a little bit better insulation in my opinion because you're going to put concrete on both sides. You're going to spray concrete, okay? But it also, because of all the interconnected wires throughout the whole thing, because you're wiring the corners, you're wiring the top, everything else, that thing is built like a fortress. And if you're in earthquake country, which we are, what happens is people don't understand that if your house was built underneath the ground, you don't have much of a problem unless it's liquefaction or something else. Because when the earth shakes, okay, it's laws of motion, right? When the earth shakes, the house shakes underneath, just with the earth, and nothing really happens. But what happens is you put that house, and the taller the house, the worse it is. Because when the earth shakes, the house goes one way, and the earth goes the other way, and it breaks down the house. Does that make sense? With these skip houses, they can handle it pretty well. I mean, they're just amazing. Okay? The other technology I would look at, if you're going to learn how to go off grid completely and prepare for hot and cold, okay, not just cold, we're talking about cold here, but this pertains to hot areas as well. I mean, this type of, these houses, that you can build them and literally you can light a candle and warm up a room because it's that well insulated. And the second type of technology I would look at, it's called passive homes. And there's just so many amazing technologies with passive homes like heat exchangers and thermal floors and all these different things, thermal roofs, everything. There's so many different things you can do and learn from passive homes. The third one, and this is a little bit of a hippie solution, has anybody heard of earth ships in here? Awesome. Okay, you guys know what I'm talking about. These are the hippie homes. I show it to my mom and she's like, she's almost 80 years old. And she's like, hey, for my 80th birthday, let's go to a hippie home. And she's totally excited to go live in one of these for a week or so, for a few days or so. And what this is this is a house built under rammed earth. Okay, they use a whole bunch of natural things or they recycle tires and everything else. But it's just fascinating the way they do it. And I'll share a little bit more with you. Is this interesting to you guys? Okay, let me grab, can you grab that whiteboard? I'll just show you some of the stuff they do here, if you don't mind. Let's grab that. Okay. All right, so I'll just show you real quick. What they'll do is they'll use the sun to be able to look at the angles. Like, for example, say this is the sun. That's the sun, okay, right there. And this is a house right here, okay? And say this is a winter sun, and say, I'm going to get rid of that. Say this is a summer sun right here, okay? What they'll do is they'll build a house where the sun can get in during the winter, but it gets blocked during the summer. On the south side or southeast side or southwest side, they're gonna make it so that they're efficiently using the sun to heat the winter and block it during the summer. And with that in mind, they'll have a lot of thermal mass where they'll put concrete, rock, or whatever else, so that heats up during the daytime and releases heat at night. Isn't that pretty cool? Now let's take it one step further. What they'll do, and this is something they changed, this started back in 1985, but recently they found out that if they add a second wall right here, they actually can do a lot more. So what they'll do is, here's the house. Is this really bad drawing, or are you guys catching this? Okay, here's the house. This is the house, okay? Let's say this is the house. They'll do a greenhouse in here, and they'll have two walls. And that greenhouse will get hit by the sun. You have an overhang right here, but the sun will still get into the greenhouse at all times of the year, but it doesn't get into the house. But it heats up here and it grows all the plants. And the cool thing about it is you have a second layer here, so now it's not getting so hot in here. All right? Now, because of convection, this is the cool part. You guys ready? Drum roll? Awesome. Okay, nice drum roll. Thank you. What happens is this is heating up inside here, winter and summer, all year round, growing the plants. And then you just open a little vent up here and the heat starts releasing. when the heat starts releasing, you can open your windows right here, okay? And it starts pulling air through here if you have a vent, okay? Now, they build these houses underneath rammed earth. So this is earth, okay? And they have a house here. What they'll do is they'll actually put pipes underneath the ground where it stays a constant 55 degrees or so. And then they'll put a big pipe at the back here. And then when they open the window and open the heat to go out, guess what comes in? Cool air during the summer. And then they close it off for the winter and they get the warm heat into the house as well. Does that make sense? So when you take these three technologies, was that an amazing drawing or what? I'm like, seriously, my wife is an artist. If she looked at this, she would like, oh my goodness, I should have been in charge. But anyways, but those three technologies, if you want to study those, you'll learn a lot about building a house off-grid. And that's my dream. That's what I study all the time, that I'm trying to figure out all the little things, all the little dreams that I have. Anyway, that, let me see where I want to go with this. Sorry. Was that interesting? Okay, good. It's something you guys can study. Okay, so in order to stay warm during cold winters when the grid is down, you're going to also want to consider extra insulation during emergencies. One of the things you can do is go around the house, and if there's any cold doors, especially on the north sides, right? Any cold rooms on the north sides, close the doors, especially if there's any drafts. Put a little bit of, some towels or something at the bottom so air can't get through. Just close off the rooms that you're not using. That way you can heat up the ones that you are. Another thing you want to do is create livable another thing you can do is create a microclimate. What you do is you can take a tent and put a tent inside a room, or create one out of cardboard or whatever else. It doesn't matter. But what you're trying to do is conserve heat into smaller spaces. So I brought this when our kids were little kids. When our kids were babies, right here, we would give them little tents. I just brought one just to show you guys. But it's just really easy because you can stick even a little baby inside a little tent like this, like that right there. And you can create a microclimate inside a room and keep that baby even warmer during a cold night. So just be creative in creating microclimates. Next one is cover cold hardwood and tile floors with some type of thick carpet. If it's the south side of the house, use some dark carpet, because if you got that sun coming in, might as well be absorbing heat during the daytime with that carpet. And next, if you have any bubble wrap around the house or extra plastic or anything else, save it for windows, because you can create your double pane window, the thing we were talking about, just by throwing on some bubble wrap that has air in between, that keeps insulation, that keeps things warmer because of the insulation. I put up this slide right here because of visqueen. I don't know if you guys are familiar with visqueen. It's right here. Do you see this? Okay. I get this from Home Depot. You can get it from different types of places. This one right here is, I believe it's a 6 mil. It's a 6 mil thickness. It has 20 feet wide by 100 feet long. It's clear plastic, and if I ever need to during an emergency, say there's a really, really bad earthquake or some type of hurricane or tornado, whatever it is, and my windows get shot, broken down, or they're plenty good, right? And I just want extra insulation, I can take this right here and I can take this plastic and put it over windows, and I can even do it on the outside and the inside if the windows are broken, and I'm just creating new windows. And I have all the tools at home, staples, anything I need to be able to seal it, tape it down, whatever I need to, glue it down, whatever, to be able to create windows during an emergency. So I recommend everybody go out and get some visqueen. Just get a big roll, put it away. If you ever need it, you can use it. You can use it for a whole bunch of things besides insulation. Also, take some time to cover exterior vents. Vents? Is that a word? Vents, right? Okay. Also take time to cover exterior vents from cold air getting into the house, including your dryer and anywhere else that it might get back in. And by the way, just a little fun note. in the fire section earlier in the course, we talked about protecting your house against house fires. Did you know that dryer lint fires is a big thing? Okay. And some people were talking about how to clean out those dryer vents. You can pay somebody a lot of money to come in. One of my experiments I want to do is I've got this air blower for leaves at home, and I'm thinking, wonder if I could just stick that in there and blow out all the lint. And so that's probably my experiment for this summer, to see how well I can clean that thing out on a yearly basis without having to pay money. But that's a side note. I digress. So let's get back to this. Another thing you can do is during an emergency, if you need extra insulation, say for example, the window does get blown out, you do have visqueen up, you need extra insulation, you can crumple up newspapers, you can get old clothes, you can get rugs, blankets, anything you want to, and use it as insulation. So just be creative during an emergency. Figure out ways of making it warmer when it's really, really cold. Some people also purchase chimney balloons or flue blockers, where the cold air can't get in through the chimney. Even if you close it, it'll actually give you an extra layer of protection against cold nights, cold times. We talked a little bit about this earlier. About storing extra insulation for emergencies, and you could get a whole bunch of different things. Just be creative again, including blankets, bubble wrap like we talked about, foam boards, anything else that you can use to put in windows and doors or repair holes during an emergency. Next, we're going to talk about off-grid house heating solutions. This is where it gets kind of fun. I'm going to get a little bit more scientific here. First of all, if you're in a cold, cold climate, you can always have a dark, dark house. The problem is most people aren't in just a cold climate, right? Some people get hot. Let me try it again. The problem is most people aren't in just a cold climate. They're in warm climates during the summer. I'm really having a hard time. Let me try that again. So that way I can edit this in right. Thanks you guys for being patient online as well. The problem is most people aren't just in a cold climate, they're also in a warm climate during the summer and cold during the winter, obviously. So you have to kind of pick and choose what you want to do. Now, if you're in a really, really cold place, it doesn't really hurt to go dark. If you're in a very hot place, it would be the opposite. Have you guys heard of solar air heaters? This is awesome. This is something you can create to be able to create hot air in your house. And if you do it right, you could actually have a little fan blowing with a little solar panel if you need to, that blows through the house and into the house using convection. And what it is you'll get glass. Has anyone done solar cooking here? Oh my goodness, a lot of you. So the sun ovens, right? You can take a sun oven that's completely sealed with glass on top, and you can actually stick food inside there, and it'll get super hot and cook that food. And it could be negative 40 degrees outside just using the sun. It's the same concept on these solar air heaters. You get a sealed little container, put black paint on the back to be able to absorb the heat. You're warming up the you're warming up the hot air inside, and it's rising and going into the house. And it could be dead cold outside. It could be the dead of winter, super, super cold outside. This was a picture I found that I thought was really awesome because somebody decided to go on the south side of their house. Excuse me. This was awesome because somebody decided to put a solar. Man, I'm really struggling right now. Sorry, guys. Let me take a little breath. I'm usually fine until I know I'm being recorded for a class. Okay. I had to put this picture in here because it's really awesome. Somebody actually did a heater wall on the south side of their house. And it's just big and long. And they talked about how it heated up their whole house. And I thought, that's cool. That's awesome. So I put that in for anybody who's interested. You can do a similar idea by opening up your window and putting a solar box, a window box. And it's the same idea. You paint the bottom of it really dark. You can have little fans. You seal it off except for the fan areas and let it heat up the warm in there and then blow in the warm air into the house during the daytime. This is this is a solution that my dad would do in Greece. My dad's Greek, and I used to visit him in Greece every couple of years. And he really didn't have a way of heating water except for by the sun. And and with the technology we have today, it's really easy to be able to do this. Anybody here of radiant floor heating? Does that sound familiar? Okay, you know what I'm talking about. You could actually get PEX lines, and you can run them through all your floor. And because heat rises, you just put a little bit of heat through there. You can use a whole bunch of technologies to heat things up with very, very little power. And you're able to put heat throughout the whole floor, and it warms up the house very, very evenly. And with that, let me just see what this next one is. I thought I had a slide on. I didn't. Okay, I thought I had a slide on it. Maybe I'll do it later on. But one of the things you can also do is you can do zoning, and I think I might have a slide on this, but I'm not too sure. You can do zoning. You can do zoning so that you can heat up one room and have everybody in that room, so you're not heating up everything and wasting a ton of energy. One thing you can do also, if you want to combine technologies, is you can have solar water being heated and then run it through your house with radiant heating from the floor, and now you're using all natural ways of heating your house. If you want to go one step further, you can use thermal mass, like concrete or rocks or something else to heat those up as well. We talked a little bit about passive solar heating. Remember I was telling you, have the sun coming in during the winter months and have it blocked during the summer months. This is the idea of passive solar heating. And with that idea, you want to make sure if you're going to retain heat during the night times, have some type of battery basically to capture that heat. Okay, I'm going to show this probably a little later on, but right here is soapstone. Soapstone is Settler's radiator basically. It holds heat tremendously well, and it's beautiful. I'll show you that in just a bit. Something else you can do is you can create thermal mass by water. You'll notice this picture right here. They're actually taking like 5-gallon jugs, painting them black, putting water in it. Water will gather heat and then release heat over nighttime really, really well. Some people will make off-grid homes where they put big water structures or big tanks or ponds inside their house or whatever else to be able to capture heat and then release that heat over the nighttime, because it does it very efficiently. Indoor fireplace is another good thing to do. If you're going to do a fireplace, make sure it's not just one of the decorative ones, but it actually does the job. It actually brings heat into the house, not just burns wood. And if you can find a way to capture that heat with some type of stone or concrete, that's even better. And you have wood burning stoves as well. With worms, let me try that again. And then you have wood burning stoves as well. So I've got one that we pulled up here. This is the best portable wood burning stove that I know of in the market. All the other ones have copied this one. It's built in the United States. It's just an amazing wood burning stove. That's what we carry here in the store. With this right here, you can do a lot of things with it. You can actually take it and put it in, you got a whole bunch of different sizes. You can take it into tents if you need to leave. But you can also set this up in your home if you ever need to. This right here, this little connection that they sell, allows you to connect it to a window where it gives the exhaust goes right outside the window, and you can set it up in any room. Now, it might not be compliant, so I got to tell you that because legally I'm supposed to. But because there's a whole bunch of laws on this stuff, crazy, right? But during an emergency, I don't think anyone's going to complain if you set up a wood burning stove in your living room or whatever and closed all the other doors and kept people warm in that room. This one right here, I'm just going to show you, has an oven, which is, I feel like Vanna White, okay? This one has an oven, okay, right here, and you can actually bake things in it using the heat. I think this is a 5-gallon tank right here for water, so you can have plenty of hot water for sanitation or hot chocolate and anything else you want to drink. And you just throw the wood in there and start burning it. or coal, right? But coal's a different story. In fact, I'll talk about coal probably in the next class. Another thing you can do to be able to stay warm. How did I get to that? Did I click all the way? Oh my goodness, I wasn't paying attention. Okay. So another thing people build is a thermal rocket mass heater, where it actually uses, man, I'm trying to explain it. Another thing people build to be able to heat up houses during the winter is a thermal or rocket mass heater. You'll actually burn wood. It'll actually go through a concrete or stone or some type of heat mass structure, thermal mass structure, and it'll actually heat up that whole thing while the air is going through and going out the exhaust. So you're burning wood or whatever you're burning, and it's actually heating up this piece of concrete or whatever you put in there, and that ends up becoming a heater for that room or that house. When we were talking about passive homes, one of the things they use is they use a heat recovery system. It's called an MV. Thank you. It's called an MVHR, and it actually efficiently brings cool in. It efficiently brings cool air in from the outside and warms it up, and takes warm air out as well and cools it down. And while they're exchanging, it's actually doing a lot of the heating and the cooling. And it's low energy, by the way. It doesn't take a ton of energy to do that. And we talked a little bit about this earlier. I was trying to find the slide. We talked a little bit about this earlier. Heat zoning is super important because you can actually turn on the heat in one room or a couple rooms instead of trying to heat the whole house during an emergency. That way you can conserve energy and be all huddled up in one place. One little other piece of advice. Another piece of advice I want to give also is get yourself a good non-electronic thermometer. That way you can see how cold or hot it is. Just a little bit of information. You know, people say information precedes revelation, right? When you have enough information, you can make better decisions. And so I recommend everybody go out and get something like this. It doesn't have to look like this. It just needs to be non-electric. It just has to be non-electric, right? Okay, let's talk a little bit about additional ways to stay warm, and then I'm going to ask you guys some questions afterwards. I want to hear what you guys learned or what you guys would want to do for yourselves. Sometimes no matter what you do, your house is still going to be cold or you have to go outside. What do you do during those situations? In fact, let me ask you guys, what do you do during those situations?
Eat lots of food.
Oh, absolutely.
Have lots of energy.
Yeah, get lots of energy. That's a big one, right? People can get hypothermic, not because it's super cold, because they don't have enough energy to be able to heat their body, right? It doesn't have to be super cold, right? So that's a good one. What else? What else can you do when you've tried everything else and it's super cold?
Dress warm, layers.
Yeah, layers is a big one.
During
right?
the winter, you can put more on. During the summer, you can't take more off.
Yeah, that's right. Good idea. Let's go another one right here.
A personal Mylar tent.
A personal Mylar tent. Awesome, reflected, right? Awesome. Let's talk a little bit about that. And I'm going to have you guys ask me questions because this is stuff I mean, I've studied so much of all these things that I'd love for you guys to actually ask me questions where I can go a little bit deeper. One of the things you can do is obviously stay active. You want to get more active so your body can create more heat, but not so much that you sweat and you end up getting more cold because of the sweat. Next is you want to stay fed and hydrated, like you mentioned, because that's going to give the body fuel to be able to create the heat that you need. And during winters, do you guys know about the second law of thermodynamics? Heat goes to cold. Do you know what I'm talking about? Most people don't understand that you can dehydrate during the summer, but you can probably dehydrate even faster during the winter. Because your body in a cold area is taking the heat from your body very quickly because it's going from hot to cold. Does that make sense? Where if you're during the summer, it's hot to hot. It has to perspire. You see it all. In fact, one way of noticing what I'm talking about is during a cold winter, what happens when you're talking to someone outside? You see all that coming out of your mouth, I mean, that's water. That's water coming out of your body. But because it's going from hot to cold, it comes out quicker. So make sure you eat and drink quite a bit. One of the things I recommend is drink lots of liquids, but you can eat lots of liquids as well. So find your favorite soups, try to find healthy soups, right? Something warm. And stay away from alcohol. So alcohol is going to make you feel warmer, but it actually depletes the body of energy super quickly. So just stay away from it. Building a fire outdoors could be a good thing as well. Just make sure, if you're going to build a fire, make sure you build it outdoors, not indoors, unless you have a fireplace or something else. A lot of people, I mean, it blows my mind, but a lot of people don't understand how you can die if you actually build some type of fire indoors. People bring their barbecues indoors during emergencies. I'm like, what are you thinking? You know, you're going to kill yourself as a fireman. Like, we see stuff like that. Another thing is to find ways of heating up stones, bricks, or whatever else. Remember I was telling you about the soapstones. I'm going to just pull one off right here. This is a soapstone right here. This is this retains heat so well. And if I were in an emergency and things were really, really cold and I had a fire outside, I'd throw a bunch of these inside the fire, and then when I was ready to go to bed or something, I'd take this in for my family. We'd wrap it in some type of towel or put it in a big thick sock or something and just stick it in everybody's beds. And it'll just stay warm for hours. You can do this in so many different ways. You just got to be creative, but this is one of the things I love. So I have, personally, I have soapstones. Now you can use them in a lot of different ways. Beth ended up setting up some displays here for me before I ended up teaching. And she took some soapstones and actually made a little housing with a little crack in the back for ventilation. Super easy to do. And I was like, that's brilliant, okay? And you can take some type of fuel and heat up the stones so they radiate heat. Does that make sense? A lot of people, let me see if I have this on the next one. Here's water bottles. You can do the same thing with water bottles. Let me see if I have it up here. I do. Let me get to this in a little bit. But soapstones are awesome. In fact, I'm just going to go to it real quick, okay? What people will also do is they'll do the same thing with these terracotta little pots. Know what I'm talking about? If you've ever done these, they don't really get that warm. But it's a big thing on the internet. Everyone's talking about terracotta pots and put some type of candle underneath and it's going to get really warm. It's going to radiate heat and everything else. Now you can do a few things to make it better. You can block this hole first of all because a lot of the heat is escaping through the top hole, and it will get warmer. And why not? You know, if you're going to be burning a candle inside to keep a little bit warm, then why not put that there and get a little bit of extra heat because it's going to absorb the heat and radiate it. But if you can get something else like these soapstones, it might be even better. The concept is you're trying to capture heat. Whether it's a terracotta pot or a soapstone or a rock from outside or concrete, pieces of concrete or whatever, you're trying to find ways when you're burning fuel to be able to heat up stuff that you can use later or radiate heat at the time. Does that make sense? Okay. You can do the same thing with water bottles. You can put aluminum foil on hot water. You can put aluminum foil on bottled water that you heat up. There's a lot of different ways you can do it. Just be creative. And you can also use heating units. This right here, I brought some of mine right here. This is Mr. Heater, and you have a vest up there as well that uses convection to be able to blow hot air in. And any of these are going to be good for the short term because you need fuel, okay? So why not use it for the short term? It's great. For a long-term emergency, it's a whole different story. With this right here, we're going to talk about propane and everything else, but they're a great short-term solution. And I've tested out these Mr. Heaters inside closed spaces with a CO alarm right here, okay? Where I wanted to find out, am I putting my life in danger with all this stuff burning all night? It didn't do anything. I mean, this thing didn't go off once, and I checked it over and over. It was perfectly fine. It actually burns fuel so efficiently, you could put it in a closed space and you'll be fine. See if I want to go into anything else here. Oh, that's what it was. Going just a little bit further on this terracotta and this idea right here, a lot of people put candles, but they also have the canned heat. If you ever seen those, this is an example of canned heat right here, okay, that you can actually use as well. And it actually burns for 6 hours and it heats up quite a bit. So you're going to be able to get a lot more heat than one of these tea lights right here. Okay, let's see. Let me see how many more I have here. Oh, okay. I'll do this. This is fun. Okay, so now we started talking a little bit about tea lights, and I'm going to share something with you. See this little tiny tea light right here? So my friends, they go caving. Has anybody ever gone caving professionally here? Okay, you know what I'm talking about then. This little thing can save your life. Okay, how many hours do we get out of this? Is it 6 hours? 6 hours. 6 hours of burn time with this. This is a little bit different. This is the one I would use. It's a little bit different than normal tea lights. Most tea lights are going to be made out of paraffin. If you're in a very enclosed space, like a little tiny bag and you're breathing inside there, this could become a little bit toxic. Usually it doesn't if it's in open air. But in that situation, I would probably go for something like this, which is made out of palm oil. It's a lot safer. But this still has a 6 hour burn time. So when you are in a situation where you cannot warm up at all and people are dying, okay, it's really easy. All you have to do is go get yourself a contractor bag, get a bunch of those and store up. You have 55 gallon all the way up to 95 gallon. You have 3 mil, 4 mil. You want to get something at least 3 mil thick, something really thick, or just keep it really simple. We just do this right here and use an emergency sleeping bag. It's the same idea, okay? Does anybody want to get in this real quick? Anybody? Are you serious? You're awesome. Get over here. Okay. I'm actually going to put it over your head. Is that okay? So what happens is this. I want you guys to imagine this. And by the way, this right here, you hear the sound of this? This is a higher quality than this. Hear that sound? Okay, this is the blanket. Don't get blankets. They're dumb. Like a lot of people will get these emergency blankets. Why would you ever get those? Because they're cheap. Because if you have a sleeping bag, you can create a blanket out of it. You just cut it, and you got a blanket. But when you put those blankets out, how much cold air is going through that blanket? From the bottom, from the top, and everything else. Now, if I were doing this, and I were going to keep warm, I'd get either a big contractor's garbage bag, or, you ready for this? Put this over like this, and you see, that goes all the way down. I've never done this with anyone. But you can see how far down it goes. You see that? You can actually walk around with this if you needed to with a little candle inside there, and it'll heat up the whole thing super quickly. To the point.
Feeling warm.
Oh, yeah, you're feeling it, aren't you?
Yep.
The funny thing about it is, this is the caution I want to give you. If it's raining outside, make sure you have good head protection, but put a little hole here for your head to come out. Or if it's really cold and wet and everything else, put a little hole from your chin to your nose for you to breathe out of. You're going to get condensation in there. You need something to allow the condensation out. You're awesome, by the way. Thank you for letting me do that. That was awesome. But you see what I'm talking about. There's little creative ways of staying warm if you need to. When people are caving and they get in a situation where they can't get out, they'll have, you know, a whole handful of these little candles that go 6 hours a piece. They'll take their backpacks, they'll take their little packs that they brought in, they'll put them underneath them because you don't want the cold sucking out of you, you know, or the heat sucking out of you through the rocks underneath you. So they'll sit on top of their backpacks for insulation. They'll put a bag over them like that, put a little tea light, and they'll just lean up against something or lay down or whatever, anywhere where that flame isn't going to hit the bag, right? And it'll warm up literally in a few seconds and just keep you warm for 6 hours. Okay, so there's creative ways of doing this. Is that interesting? Isn't that cool? Okay. You can also use body heat, right? You can use animals for body heat as well. And electric blankets don't take a ton of energy. So if you have solar, you can get a bunch of electric blankets so people can get cozy and stay warm with those as well. For us here, you can grow out your hair, right? For a lot of people, right? Women like to grow out their hair. Men can grow out hair in different places, and you can use that to be able to keep yourself warm during winters. And we talked a little bit about layering clothes. This is not my favorite way of doing it, but it's the most economical way for most people to do it. When you're layering anything, just like sleeping bags, you've heard of hollow fill. You have all the different types of down fills and everything else. Anytime you have all those different layers, when moisture is leaving your body, it's getting caught in between those layers. The same thing with clothes. When you have a whole bunch of layers of clothes, moisture is getting caught in between the layers, and that can eventually get you cold. That's why a lot of military will have their Gore-Tex and all their high-tech everything else, and they'll be freezing after a little while because the moisture can't get released all the way out because of their outer protective layer, right? And that moisture will start building up in between layers. So if you're going to do it right, if you're going to do layers, I recommend you have some type of moisture wicking layer. Let me see if I brought one. Make sure you do not do cotton, but do some type of synthetic clothing that pulls away the water from your body. Next, you want to, and also underwear, make sure you stay away from cotton and everything underwear. You're going to get another layer. This is a fleece, for example, which I'm a big fan of fleece. I think it's just a good idea. You can do several layers of fleece if you need to. You can have a good pair of pants like these right here. I use for skiing, but also they're emergency pants if I ever needed them. And these are different layers you can do, and you can have a shell where it protects you from rain and everything else. That's one way to do it. Layers works. It's not the best, but it works. You want good headwear. You want good handwear, things that are going to keep you warm. And you want to make sure that you have warm and sturdy. And you want to make sure that you have warm and sturdy footwear as well. I love merino wool. I've tested merino wool for years for my socks. I think they're just awesome. They're so good. They're antimicrobial to a good degree, to the point where I wore my merino wool socks for days and days and days just to see what would happen. And then I smelled them. And guess what? They smelled good. Well, I thought they smelled good. My wife probably didn't think they smelled so good, but I thought they smelled good. But that's merino wool. Make sure you have good boots, whatever else you need. You can get a whole bunch of different types of boots out there. I'll throw this down. Your Sorels and anything else. Now, when they rate them for super cold weather. They don't go that cold. Okay, you're going to be freezing unless you have some type of larger boot and you put some type of good insulating, good insulating bootie inside there to keep it warm. And I can show you some of those in just a little bit. One other thing I would recommend is have tons of blankets. Lots of blankets around your house. Just save them up. Have good sleeping bags. You'll never complain during a cold winter during an emergency that you had too many blankets. And I'm going to share one more thing and then I want to share something else with you guys. Remember I told you how layers is not my favorite? Guess what is my favorite? Man, you're so good. Open cell polyurethane. Boy, you're reading you're pretty smart. That's funny. Do you guys know what that is? Yeah, that's an example of one. Okay. What it is, it's the law of thermodynamics. That's all it is. Second law of thermodynamics. Remember we talked about heat goes to cold, right? If you don't block the heat from going to cold, you stay warmer as long as there's an insulating unit. So if you look at this picture right here, do you see that little diagram? That's from Jim Phillips, who just recently died. Okay, a friend of mine. Now he has amazing information. He is the world authority when it comes to cold winter clothing. Okay, millions of dollars into research and everything else. Outfitted the military and he outfitted the military in so many different things. He is amazing. Okay, he's dead now, so he's amazing up there. Okay, and for Jim's sake and his wife's sake, his website is jimsway.com. Has amazing information on there. Support his widow if you don't mind. And this little diagram right here is something he made to explain how the law of thermodynamics works. Do you see the layer on the bottom right there where it has lining fabric? Do you see where it says lining fabric at the bottom? And then you see on the outside it says outer fabric. Those are completely breathable. Could be a polyester, could be anything else. They're completely breathable. That means if water gets on you, it gets in, or it can get in. But the cool thing about it is open cell polyurethane is hydrophobic. It doesn't hold on to water. So you can literally, I've watched videos on this, where they have a big burly man and all this amazing military clothing and Gore-Tex, and then they take a woman, a skinny, scrawny woman, and put her in polyurethane, and what they'll do is they'll actually soak that polyurethane in water before they put it on her, but he has completely dry clothes. And then they'll go into negative, 40 degrees into a freezer, and they'll spend hours and hours in there. That guy is almost dead, and she's like, nah, I'm not feeling anything, totally warm. People will jump in, literally make holes in ice in lakes, jump in with this clothing on, and they'll get out freezing cold, go like this, take out the water a little bit, and literally, how long does it take to get warm? 45 seconds. Okay? And then you stay warm. That's because of the law of thermodynamics. When you have, on this picture right here where I'm showing this, when your skin is here and you're allowing all the moisture to escape so it's not building up and getting you cold on the inside, okay? It's just steaming out, just going as quick as it can go out. And then you have an insulating layer where the cold can't get in. Your body will actually keep the regulation, or your body will actually keep the heat that it normally has. What that means, just to help you understand this, if it's super cold outside and it's being kept from getting in, and your body's releasing the heat normally in the moisture, you stay the same degrees on the inside, even if it's hot outside. So they'll put this clothing on, and people will dress in less clothes, get into a hot car in the summer, and somebody will have this insulating clothes on, and they're not that hot. Okay, it's just science. It's just normal science. The problem is it's a little bulky, it's expensive and everything else, but it's just the best. So right here, one of our teammates, let me just move this. One of our teammates ended up taking some of our open cell foam and making, what do we call this guy again? Fortress Fred? Fortress Fred, okay? Making Fortress Fred right here. And this just gives you a little feel. All this stuff is open cell foam. You see how this is a little bit bulkier? You put this on and it evaporates right through. You get this soaked and it still stays warm, even though it's soaked, okay? Same thing with the pants, same thing with the booties. Remember I said if you can get a good pair of booties, which will pull out the moisture from away from your skin and get it into a bigger pair of shoes or boots, right? You'll stay warmer with this. Same thing with your little hoodie right here. This is my personal jacket. I just put it here because I wear it at night, especially here when it's cold for the winters. And this is it right here. Super easy. And this right here keeps me so warm. And if you warm up your core, guess what happens to your hands? They stay warm. You warm up your core, your body, your head, right? Your hands stay warm. I think I brought a little video actually of that. So I did. Okay, one of the things I do is I like to test out everything. And in one of the previous videos, I ended up talking a little bit about sleeping outside. I took the open cell foam and I ended up taking the thank you. I ended up taking the polyurethane, can't even say it. I ended up taking the polyurethane and I tested it outside several times on different nights to see what would happen if I didn't have a tent, and I failed at first. I didn't go very well. I didn't have the right layers of this. Okay, you need layers of this even on cold nights. So I went out there, I think it was 14 degrees, I can't remember. It was like really cold. And what happened is I hadn't acclimatized yet. I wasn't acclimated to the cold. Next time I went out, it got better. Next time I went out, after that, it got better. It got easier and everything. Remember I told you up to 3 weeks to get used to cold. And I got used to it pretty well, to the point where my kids one night wanted to go out with me and they wanted to sleep in the sleeping bag next to me without, clothes basically. They were in their pajamas, bare feet, and they just got in there completely warm all night. And I slept out there and I was warm. And I think I have a little video here. Let me play this video so you guys can hear it. Do we have the sound up? Okay. All right, it's morning, and it's pretty fun taking out these clothes, just sleeping in the cold. It was still sub-freezing all night, but not as cold as I wish it could get. But it was still pretty cold. And these clothes handled it just fine, perfectly fine. In fact, my kids are still in the sleeping bag right there sleeping. They haven't gotten out yet. They did fine. If anything, I stuck my hand inside there and tested it out. And they were so warm. If anything, they were too hot. In fact, I took off my gloves. I took off my gloves for part of the night because it was just so warm, and I took off my face mask and did a few extra experiments. But yeah, it was nice. It was really good. Right? Happy day. You like that video? So I'll give you guys a little bit of the things I learned that night. Do you want me to share those? Okay. Some of the things I learned is, first of all, you have to have good insulation underneath. And that you're going to perspire. All that hot is going to go to cold. A lot of moisture. Whatever's underneath you is going to be soaked. Okay, but I didn't feel it. That's the crazy thing. I had this stuff on. It was soaked underneath me. This was soaked, and I was like, I didn't even feel it. That's so cool. So I ended up putting a big foam pad of the same material, right, underneath me, a big thick one. And then you put an insulating panel underneath that, something to insulate from the cold coming up from the bottom as well. And then I started testing out different ways of getting warmer at night, and I ended up getting inside a sack, and it got really warm. Now, the moisture can't escape through the sack, but if I were in a situation where I needed to survive, and I had my clothing, which I would have for some type of 72-hour situation, whatever, this stuff is always ready to go at my house. What I would probably do for my family and myself, if we couldn't get in a tent, is I would get myself let me just grab this. I would get myself one of these right here, get this clothing on, get the hoodie and everything, and I would just get inside of it. Now I might sweat, but what's happening is it's pulling the sweat away from my body and taking it to the outside of this, so that it's still going to keep me pretty warm. But it's just a makeshift tent very quickly. That was one of the things I learned that I can do. Another thing I learned is in the sleeping bags, there's holes and stuff all on the top. If you can get a little fleece little sleeping bag, know what I'm talking about, and get inside it a little liner, it actually helps out as well. Keeps you even warmer. And I'll just show you, I pulled this here. I throw this in my car when I'm traveling, and obviously I don't live close by here, and I came down tonight, and it's winter, and I can get stuck in a canyon. I always just throw this inside my car with some food and water in case I ever get stranded. And this is what my kids slept in. And you'll notice how many holes it has in it. And they were warm all night long with all those holes. You cannot do that in a normal sleeping bag. You'd be freezing in a normal sleeping bag. And I've gone camping with other people in cold, cold nights. And I'm inside here with nothing on. Because basically, if you do have clothes on, you get colder. If you have less clothes on, it lets it breathe, and you get warmer. So I have barely anything on, and I'm totally inside here with holes in there, and I am just toasty warm. And one other thing that I'll share with you, did you notice how my kids were sleeping in this? Did you see their faces? Not at all. It's freaky. The first time you sleep inside one of these sleeping bags, you can put your head out if you want to. You know, you can sleep with your head out all night long if you want to. But because it breathes so well, you can sleep inside and you're totally fine as well. And it's comfortable. Isn't that cool? It's just a whole different concept, but it keeps you really warm during emergencies. So that gives you a little feel for open cell polyurethane. Did I say it right? Okay, good. So the last thing for this section is sometimes you just can't find a way to get warm. Sometimes things are so bad, house is broken, falling apart, or whatever, that you don't have a way to get warm. So I want to remind you, always have some type of backup. Do you have a community center you can go to, a friend's house? Do you have a neighbor? Do you have a relative? Do you have somewhere where else you can go, a library? Anywhere else where you can go to at least get warmth during the nighttime so that you can go survive the days, sleep at night in those places, do what you need to do until you can get more help. So as a way of ending this presentation, this video for tonight, I want to have you guys decide, plan out, and write down ways that you're going to keep warmer during a long-term winter emergency, and do that before you get to the next video. Now, as a way of wrapping up this section, getting to the next video, are there any cool things you guys learned? Anything that you would like to add? Anything you'd like to talk about or remind the people listening on this video that you thought was really cool or enlightening in today's little video about staying warm during cold winters? Let's go ahead and take the video or the microphone around. Anything that popped out to you guys that you liked? Let's go right here.
Well, obviously, there's lots of things you can do to really seal off your home. But the thing that I just kept thinking of is you still have to make a plan for during the day when it's at its warmest, that you open up your home so that you get fresh air moving through.
Absolutely.
And, killing the germs that are there, because even though it's cold air can also kill germs and make you more healthy. So you just kind of have to plan that strategically.
Absolutely.
So that the hottest part of the day, you just get lots of circulation going on, but then use all those methods to really seal things off when it's
Awesome.
cooler.
I love it. Thank you for bringing that up. That's really important for people to know. In fact, this next video, we're going to talk a little bit about how to make it cooler when it's warmer. So that's you're leading right into it.
One of the things that my wife and I do is, and this is a alternative health strategy as well as staying comfortable, is grounding or earthing. So we have a silver filament sheet, and the animals are able to withstand the colder temperatures at night because they're grounded to the earth.
I like it. Thank you. I thought I saw one more hand. Was there one back here? Oh, go ahead.
I just like the bubble wrap.
Yeah,
I
it's
thought
a
that was
simple
cool.
idea, huh?
Yeah, it's on every gift you get at Christmas time. Roll it up, shove it in a
And
drawer
it's-
somewhere. and
Air
you
is
can
so
use it.
air is so insulating. Air is so insulating, and you just have a bunch of air in between that thing. It's just a simple way of warming up a house. So awesome. Okay, go ahead.
So what you were talking about with water is really true, because water absorbs and releases heat much slower than air. That's why coastal areas are more moderated temperatures than inland areas. Land loses heat quicker and gains heat quicker than water does.
Yeah.
So having water storage as a heat sink is an excellent idea. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great idea. And also, you notice when you get to tree farms, right, where there's a whole bunch of trees out there and a frost is coming, it's going to get cold. What do? They spray ice, they spray water into the air, okay, to be able to save the trees, right? Because it sucks it up right there, right? So you're right. So let's take a little quick breather. We're going to get to the next video, and you guys need to stretch at all, or are we good? Okay, quick stretch. Let's do a 1 minute stretch, and we'll get started. That's it's a open cell polyurethane, polyurethane. Yeah, sleeping bag.
And the green thing is the contractor's bag.
Oh yeah, contractors. It's a trash bag basically.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's the difference between what you have on and these liners for these jackets there?
They're the same thing.
It's the same thing.
Same
This
thing.
just looks good.
It's just, yeah, that's it. And during an emergency, I would wear that underneath and this on the outside.
Okay.
So,
Here's a
Evelyn.
tip for insulation. This is thermal imaging. I use it for many things
Yeah.
for preparedness.
Yeah.
But one is you could just look at your walls, and if it's missing a spot of insulation
yeah,
in the interior point of your wall, you'll see the cold spot or the hot spot.
I might bring that up in the next one, if you don't mind. That's a good idea. So,
This is open cell polyurethane.
yeah, polyurethane, yep.
Is it, and you call it a sleeping bag or?
It's a sleeping bag.
Okay.
yeah.
And the orange, what's that called?
That's a emergency sleeping bag.
Okay.
emergency swim bag, and we have those over here. So, yep.
So you say you sell these?
So we can. I've been trying to get to the guy who builds it, but he hasn't gotten back to me. So if I have enough knowledge to be able to do it myself, I just want to honor the entrepreneur, and so
Is that a Jim Phillips design?
it is. Yeah.
What happened?
With what?
Jim,
He ended up dying of cancer.
really?
Yep.
He presented here like
Yep.
a year ago.
Yeah. Yeah. He died about a year ago.
I have one of them and I've slept with this. This is a
Is that like the green
home cell stuff.
home that you can use it? Joanne.
Yeah, that-
It has to be an open cell phone. So yeah, and if you can find the right one, I would get some and test it out on yourself, and if it works, make yourself one.
Online were asking
Does that
me,
make
so
sense?
I asked them
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
There's 3 people online so far that've asked, how do I get one of those sleeping bags?
Okay.
Does, that was Jim's sleeping bag. I don't know if Fortress
Jim's
is on
buddy.
it or not.
They aren't, but
Keith.
yeah, Keith is. So we'll have to address that somehow. I'm trying to find a solution right now.
How
Okay.
claustrophobic can you get in there? Well, I'm good. If you're good with that. Plant me in there.
Yeah, that's good.
I did it, and if you're breathing in there, you are putting moisture in, but it
It goes
real
out.
works its way out.
Yep, easily.
I had to stick my nose out though. I
Should have had a truckload of those. You probably sold them all tonight.
I know. Yeah.
And your kids have nothing full of face blankets in there with them?
They didn't even have. They had blankets. Yeah. They just threw a blanket on top of themselves and slept. It was just a fleece. No, fleece blanket. Well, we had a foam pad underneath.
Round in the bottom of this with the foam pad.
No, I had them on a cot. So I had a.
So the foam pad was inside this,
No, foam pad was underneath it.
underneath it.
Yeah, so what you want to do is you got a cot, you put an insulating barrier, foam pad, and then that.
And then they just had a small blanket with them inside.
They just put a blanket on themselves and they were fine. In fact, I don't think they used the blanket most of the night.
It's in my RV.
If I can get a hold of the guy, if not, then I'll have to figure out a way to create them because I've been studying it for so long that I could do it myself if I wanted to.
About how much?
And so it's $400. Yeah, they're expensive. Yeah.
Sell the sleeping bags?
We could. I just need to reach out and we can offer a member discount and all that. I just have to reach out to the person who could make it for us, and he's going to reach out for me.
Yeah, I'm gonna try. Oh, he's.
You're welcome.
It's something like 43K.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I've seen it.
That's his website.
Yeah.
There
Yeah, I want to be able to, get some member discounts and all that for our members and stuff. But
I'm sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
so we'll see how it goes.
I'll sit here.
It's pretty interesting. You can get in it if you want to try it out real quick.
Curious.
Okay, let's go ahead and have a seat so we can get started. We're going to get the next presentation loaded up. Okay, let's go ahead and have a seat.
Front row or anything?
They'll fill it in, I think, so they'll be fine. That's a lot of information. You guys are being awesome. Was that interesting? Like this stuff? Okay, when I edit it, it's a lot easier to listen to me, but it's it's hard because if I've given this presentation 50 times, it's really easy for me not to look at the presentation, but I just put this together really quick, and for us to be able to have this tonight. Anyway, let's go ahead and have a seat. Let's get everybody in the right. Okay, awesome. Can we have you guys move in a little bit if you guys don't mind? Thank you. All right, and those online, thank you so much. We're going to get started again. Okay. Okay, you guys all set? All right. Thanks, you guys, for the energy. Can you guys give me just some claps? I need to feel it. Thank you. I'm going to work off your energy. Just keep going here. Okay, we are back and we're talking about temperature regulation. Okay, I'm going to start over again. Okay, we are back and we're talking about temperature regulation, but this time instead of talking about when it's cold, we're going to talk about what to do when it's hot. And just like the other one we talked about, there are a few things we can do to prepare for that. Number one is to pre-insulate your house like we talked about. Number two, same thing, extra insulation during emergencies. Number three, off-grid ways of cooling your house, not heating your house. And fourth, additional ways that you can stay cooler during hot days. So pre-insulate your home. A lot of the same things we talked about in the last video, you're going to do in this video. The first thing is seal all the leaks around doors, okay, around windows, under doors, electrical outlets, lighting, light switches, anything that you can. We had a good suggestion that came up during the break. You want to come up and I'll let you share this. Where's the microphone? Let's see. But this was a good little suggestion I thought was cool, and I'll just let you share it.
Thermal imaging is really great for preparedness. You could see in the dark. You don't need light. But for insulation, you could find spots in your wall that's not well insulated, and just by looking at it, it'll be a hot spot or a cold spot depending on whether it's hotter or colder outside. And then you could put some insulation in that spot.
Yep, excellent. That was a great suggestion. I didn't even think of that. You know, if you can get one of those thermal imaging cameras and able to use that before an emergency happens, you can see everywhere you need to make the house more secure, insulation-wise. The other thing you want to do is insulate your home using exterior wall insulation, interior wall insulation, roof, attics, crawl spaces, basements, anything that you would do in the previous section like we talked about, you're going to want to do in this section as well. We've already gone through the details, so I'm just going to spare you that and you guys get the idea. But one thing you can add for hot climates is you can do a radiant barrier where you have the aluminum, okay, the metal, and it is able to radiate or block the radiation from entering your home even more. You also want to make sure you have a good roof intake and exhaust vents so that air can travel into the attic and leave out through those vents so that you're not heating your home up from the inside out, right? Or inside in, actually. Not inside out, but inside in. From that attic, it's so hot, it can mess up the rest of your house warmth and make things a lot more warm, including through your AC units or through your vents that go through the attics a lot of the times. One of the things people like to do is they like to do a ventilated roof. It's called a cold roof. It's called a cold roof system. It's called a cold roof system, and it allows air to actually go into a layer of underneath the roof. Basically, there's a layer, and it goes right out the top of the roof through vents. You can use attic fans. You can either have them run by electricity that you can hook up to solar or whatever else you want, or you can buy little solar units that actually will run the fan for you using a temperature gauge. When it gets too hot, it turns on automatically. That's amazing for emergencies. There's also a whole house fan that pulls air through the house and out through the attic and out through the roof. So you can use those whole house fans, and they're really amazing, and they don't take very much power to be able to run. And make sure you also add insulation to your ducts. Anything around your duct work, right? Anything around the ducts, not the quacks, but you know what I'm talking about, okay? You want to put insulation so that you're not heating up your house through those ducts and you're not losing heat or cooling through them as well. Remember, we talked about dark houses. Now, in a hot climate, you want to make it as light as possible. And you can actually install a cool roof with reflective sheets or with reflective shingles and coating, or add paints to the roof as well, where it actually reflects it, uses a certain type of paint. There's certain type of paints that actually do a better job of reflecting even UV rays from heating up your home. Let's see if I think I put that in there, didn't I? I thought I did. Maybe I didn't. Okay. In Arizona, they ended up actually putting a coating on the roads to help reduce the urban heat island, if you've heard of that, where everything gets hotter because it absorbs heat during the daytime and then retains that heat all night, and it's just miserable to live in. So by adding a layer of cement on top of the black, it actually helped reflect. The only problems with that are what? Cracking is one, but glare, oh my goodness. The glare, and also you got to remember, it's reflecting the heat. So what happens when you walk over that thing? You're feeling the heat. Okay, it might not be as cold, hot on the floor, but it's radiating that heat right on top of you. You can feel it all around you. But it's a great way of not warming up the area around you as well. A lot of people, what they'll do is they'll end up using permeable paving so that water can get through the cracks in front of their house or on their driveway, and that water actually helps cool down the area, the surrounding area. You can also use light-colored driveways to do the same thing, to keep light reflecting instead of absorbing around your house. And you can plant lots of shade trees. You plant them early so they can grow up and be able to shade your house, especially on the south side and on the west sides here in the United States. Say again. Thank you. Deciduous trees. Get up here. Okay, so this is one of the top horticulturists in the state of Utah, Mitzi. So go ahead and tell people what you're saying.
Okay, so it's a really good idea to plant deciduous trees around your house, especially on the west and the south side of your house, because when in the summertime, they'll shade your house and protect your house from that excess sunlight. In the wintertime, they have lost their leaves, and the sun will shine through their bare branches and warm your house. So don't plant evergreens on the south side.
Unless you're in a place like Phoenix.
Unless you're in Phoenix.
Microphone? Can you hear me? Test 1, 2. Check, check. Okay. Unless you're in a place like Phoenix or something.
Correct.
Where evergreens are fine.
Yeah.
Because you're going to want to block the sun as often as you can in that situation. You can also use vines on your house where it actually keeps things cooler because of it's dark, right? It's green, it's dark. But because the plants are basically perspiring, okay, they're actually keeping your house cooler through the green, with the green. People also do green roofs. They'll plant things on top of the roof with a little bit of layers of protective coverings and a little bit of dirt, and it keeps the house cooler just because of the green roof. And if you plant lots and lots and lots of vegetation around your house, guess what? Creates a different climate. Things get cooler simply because there's plants everywhere, okay? We talked a little bit about passive solar shading. Remember we talked about the angle of the sun? If you can create barriers where the sun can't get into the windows during the summer, during the hot times, it actually keeps your place a lot cooler. And you can do this in a lot of different ways. You can use patio covers. You can use pergolas outside if you want to just rest outside and enjoy the day. You can use pergolas. You can do outdoor awnings that are connected to your house. You can do solar canopies that you just put up super easily. Anybody can do this with any type of sheet inside your house. You can use solar shades. You can do outdoor solar shades. You can do exterior windows. You can do exterior. Man. Okay, let's try that again. You can do exterior window solar shades. How did I do? Let me try it again. You can do exterior window solar shades that create that creates shade and blocks the sun before it enters your home. That can help block the sun from entering your home. You can do solar screens. Have you ever seen those thicker screens? They're like darker. Okay, it actually creates kind of a shade instead of it coming into your house. It's a screen. You just got to pick the right screen. You can use blackout or thermal insulated curtains, heat blocking cellular honeycomb. Remember we showed you those blinds with the honeycomb design? They're good for hot and cold weather because they trap the air in between those little holes on the blinds. There's a whole bunch of different types of thermal shades out there. There's a whole bunch of different types of thermal and other shades that you can pick from. So you want to pick something that hopefully has a lighter color where the window is shining in, right, to reflect it, and a darker color inside if you want it. It really doesn't matter inside, but you want something that reflects the heat if possible. There's also window or glass door blinds. You've seen those. Indoor shutters or shutter blinds. Rolling outdoor shutters. Swinging or sliding outdoor shutters that can create shade and insulate you even more. And one easy thing you can do in a hot climate is just add some type of reflective film on your windows. Has anybody ever done that here in Utah? Okay, I've done it personally. We had, yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Okay, it's just a world of difference. You put that little, that little film on the outside of your window, and it just cools down the room so quickly, especially on those west windows at the end of the day in the summer where it's just heating up the rest of the house from one room. It's the craziest thing. But that reflective film makes a world of difference. For those of you who want light to come through, there's actually reflective films that'll actually change depending on the sun. It's a sun-activated smart window tint. It's a sun-activated smart window tint that actually will get darker, just like those glasses, you know what I'm talking about, the sunglasses? They'll get darker when it's really sunny and lighter when the sun's away. That way you don't have to worry about changing things out. You still can see perfectly fine, and it doesn't require electricity. If you want to go the electricity route, is it route or route? Route? Okay. If you want to go the electricity route, you can use a smart glass. It uses a tiny bit of electricity, not much at all. The amount of electricity that you would use to light a light bulb, right? 60 watts or less. You can make it so that this window will create a film, and then the film will go away during the nighttime when you want to open it up or whenever you want to open it up with just a little bit of electricity. And you can see through it. It's really expensive. I don't recommend everybody go out and get it unless you have tons of bucks, but it's just one of the options you can use. With skylights, remember how I told you I love skylights. Skylights can also bring in a ton of heat. In our warehouse right now, we have skylights, and during the summer, it got really hot, and I'm like, oh, we got food in here. What are we going to do? I ended up getting foam, like that thick foam I was showing you, with the reflective on the outside, the silver reflective, the aluminum foil, and I just stuck it in the skylights, and it cooled down the warehouse. Super easy fix. And you can do that with skylights as well at your home. And you can do that with skylights at your home as well. And if you don't want to put like foam in there, let me try that again. You can do that with skylights at home as well. And if you don't want to put that foam in there, you can just get some type of reflective film as well, or put some type of cover on the outside. The other thing I want to recommend is if you're building a house, figure out how to strategically put the windows where you should put them. If you have a very hot climate, and you want to block the sun, you probably don't want to put a ton of windows on the south side. Okay, put them on the north side where it's cooler. You can also install low, have you guys heard about low emissivity? I can't even say the words. Low emissivity? Emissivity, I can't even say it. So you can also install energy efficient windows, low E-glass efficient windows. You'll find this low E-glass, this technology, in a lot of double and triple pane windows. In fact, I'll talk about triple In fact, I'll talk about double and triple pane windows right here. You'll notice with the double and triple pane windows, they'll add the film, the low emissivity glass. I hope I said that right. And they'll add gases like argon or krypton. Usually argon is the one they use the most inside that window pane to be able to insulate that window during hot and cold times even better. So double and triple window pane windows are amazing. Next, if you have a lot of sun coming in on the west side or on the south side, for example, try to put a lot of light colors on the floor so that it doesn't absorb the heat when the sun is getting in. Hopefully you're blocking the sun from coming in, but if it is coming in for any reason, try to make things as light colored as possible. And then let's talk a little bit about extra insulation during emergencies. One of the things you can do is be creative. You can get foil, mylar, you can create sun blockers for the windows. When I was at BYU going to school, was it at BYU or is it afterwards? It was afterwards, sorry. Let me go back to it. Just be creative. Figure out a way of blocking the sun, but if you can find something reflective, if you don't have a reflective film or anything else, you can make something super easy out of aluminum foil, okay, or a reflective blanket or whatever. When I was in Draper, living here in Draper, Utah, I had roommates before I got married. And we had this one room that was west facing, and one of my roommates lived inside there. It was so hot in his room, like I don't know how he made it. One day I went by his room and I'm like, wow, it's kind of cool. What did he do? Middle of the day, I mean, it's like, or middle of the day, end of the day, the west facing sun was coming in. What he did is he ended up getting a big piece of cardboard and took aluminum foil and just wrapped the cardboard with it and stuck it in the window, and it cooled down the whole room super quickly. I mean, it was dark in there, right? But I wasn't complaining. It was just super cool. So be creative on finding ways to be able to block the sun if you need to. Just like we talked about with cold climates, you can do the same thing with hot climates, especially on the south and west sides. If there's any rooms that you're not needing to use, or you can move things out and move to a north side room, right? Go ahead and close those doors and insulate them so it's not heating up the rest of the house. Close the vents, do whatever you need to be able to keep that hot air in that room. Now, as far as off-grid cooling solutions, I'm going to give you some fun ones. First of all is cross ventilation. Everybody knows about this because everybody's probably done it in their lifetime, right? When things get really hot, you open up a window and then you let the vents go through the house. Now, I'm going to ask you a question. If you're going to do that right, most of you, by the way, probably do it wrong. I've done it wrong. If you're going to do it right, remember, does heat rise or fall? It rises. So the best way to do it is to find a window on the bottom and then find a window as high as you can, like on the second story, and make it diagonal across from each other so the wind has to, or the air has to rise, okay, using convection. It has to go through the house and it cools down the house while it goes through the house to a higher level. There's a lot of ways you can do this, and I'll give you some examples. And I'll give you some examples in a little bit because I forgot I had another couple slides. Let's see, I think I have. Yeah, there's a couple examples. I'll go to this. And I'll give you a couple examples. There's a thing called ventilation shafts that you can build into a house. It actually is a shaft right in the middle of your house that's built to bring in heat and take it through a window. Super easy. You could also have skylights that can open up and allow the heat to go out, especially if it's in a place where it's on the north side or whatever, where it's not bringing more heat in because of the sunlight. If you can block the sunlight from coming in, the direct sunlight, right? If you can block the direct sunlight from coming in. Just don't want to forget this one right there, okay? Some people, what they'll do is they'll actually create attached greenhouses like we talked about with the, what's it called? Earthships. Some people, what they'll do is they'll attach greenhouses to their house like we talked about with the earthships, or they'll have an atrium where it allows air to go in and rise up through that hole inside the middle of the house. Inside the middle of their house. Inside the middle of their house. Let me try that one more time. inside the middle of their house. And I'll probably, let me see if I want to go back to this one. No, I might as well keep on this one. I'll go back to the other one later. So another thing you can do also is build what's called a solar chimney. This is the same idea. Remember, we showed that the solar, the little box you create on the outside of your house that heats up air and brings that heats up air and brings in. Let me try this again. Some people, what they'll do is they'll build what's called a solar chimney for natural ventilation. They'll use the same concept that we talked in the last video, where you have that little box and you know the glass in the dark back, where it heats up the air and brings in the convection, brings it into your house. They'll do the same thing on a chimney. So it's actually heating up the chimney. You can use rocks to heat up the rocks, or you can use glass on the outside, or paint something black or whatever. But it creates a hot airflow that pulls air from your house, and using convection, it'll go out the chimney, and it cools the house by opening a window or something on the other side and allowing that heat to escape, because it's heating up that chimney, okay, at a higher point. Now, one very simple thing you can do that most people should do is simply leave your windows open at nighttime when it's cooler, and close all the drapes and everything, create shade during the daytime. But a lot of people don't think of something that simple. But always resort to simplicity, and also always resort to the what am I trying to say? Yeah, but just keep it simple, right? Thank you. Thank you for keeping me simple. That's awesome. But the idea is just keep it simple and think about just remember to keep it simple, and just do things that are common sense when it comes to emergencies. One thing I love, one thing I mentioned earlier in the previous video is geocooling, where you can actually put pipes underneath the ground, and you can use the constant temperature of the cool earth to be able to push air through, or use you can use a fan to suck air through it or push air through it, and you can use the cool air underneath the earth to be able to cool your whole house using barely any electricity. Some people, what they'll do is they'll find some way of getting underground, whether it's a basement or shelter, or root cellar, cold rooms. What else did I put? Did I do? I didn't do. Did I do it? No, I didn't. Let me try that one again. And just remember also that if you can get yourself underground, not just the tubes under the ground, if you can get yourself underground, there's a cooler temperature that is constant. Like if you get into a basement or underground shelter, or create a root cellar or a cold room, if you can get into that during the hot days, you'll actually find it a lot cooler for you and your family. You'll actually find it a lot cooler for yourself and your family. And then remember how we talked a little bit about thermal mass heating, where you can take something like this and heat it up and throw it inside your sleeping bag or whatever at night. Same thing goes for thermal mass cooling. So if you live in a desert atmosphere like we do, where it's hot during the daytime but it gets really cold at night, if you have something that will collect cold during the nighttime, like stones, concrete, open up all the windows, let it collect cold, because in the morning you'll feel that coldness for several hours during the daytime until it starts heating up again. So we brought up water several times, and I'm going to bring up water again. Has anybody ever gone to a store or been to a restaurant where they're misting, right? The smaller the water droplets, the more they evaporate, the quicker they evaporate in hot weather. So the bigger the water, the slower it heats and cools things. But if you can spray a lot of water droplets, you can cool down super quickly. That's why later in my presentation I'll talk a little bit about this, but that's why people spray with a little spray bottle or a little fan that has water, right? It just cools you down really quickly because it can evaporate and pull the heat away from your body through the air. So earlier in the previous In the previous video, I ended up talking a little bit about In the previous video, I talked a little bit about radiant. In the previous video, I talked a little bit about radiant heating, where you can put pipes underneath the ground, okay, put it in concrete so it has some type of thermal mass to keep that heat going. You can do the same thing with cool on the ground, but if it's better, but it's even better if you can actually do it in the ceiling, where the coolness can actually drop instead of rising, right? Because cool goes down. If you could put it in the ceiling and put some type of coolant or cool water through it, you can actually cool down the house naturally, and you can zone, just like we talked about earlier, so you can cool down certain rooms and save on electricity or save on power if you need to pump through those areas. This is a fun one. I was going to go grab a fan from Home Depot to show you guys this, but I'll just have to explain it. So let's do this. This one right here is a fun one because it's talking about fans. Has anybody ever tried to cool down a house with a fan? How many of you, and be honest here, how many of you take that fan and put it right in the window? Okay, yeah, okay. That's what most people are going to do. They're going to put it right in the window. What happens is there's a thing called Bernoulli's principle that when you blow that fan right out the window, okay, trying to move the air through the house out the window, it actually sucks it right back into the house. Okay? So as a fireman, what we need to do is when we're trying to ventilate a house, which you should do for your houses during emergencies when it's really hot, we will find a window on the other side of the building where we want to push the smoke out to be able to move the firemen in and be able to see what we're doing. We'll end up finding a window on the other side, break the window, whatever we need to, and then ventilate from the other side of the house. The same idea happens inside your houses where you're trying to ventilate out a window and you want to close all the rest of the doors and create a pathway for that cool air to come in and the hot air to go out. But this is what you need to do. You need to remember to pull that fan backwards. So say, for example, this right here, let's just grab this. Who wants to be, come on up here, okay? Say this is the door or window you're trying to ventilate. Most people are going to put a fan right here and it's sucking right back in. You want to pull that fan backwards so that when you come and feel that air from the fan is covering the whole opening. When you do that, it actually pushes the air so much faster, so much better, just by bringing it backwards. And you can find a ton of videos on this on YouTube. Thank you. Does that make sense to you guys? Okay, it's a simple thing to do, makes a huge difference. The other thing you got to understand is a lot of you have ceiling fans. During the winter, you want the fan pushing up. During the summer, you want the fan pushing down. Okay, it'll take cool air from the bottom, pull it up through the walls, around the walls, into the fan and push the cool air down. Okay, and it'll create a convection. Does that make sense? So just take that little knob and just switch it. In the summer, switch it in the winter. So it goes up and down depending on what it is. So in heat, you want it to go down. A lot of people don't want to use central heating and cooling units in their house during emergencies. They'll have a solar unit on their house and some batteries. They're trying to figure out how can we conserve energy. And this is one way to do it. It's a ductless mini split air conditioner. It's an air conditioner. And it just goes into one room or several rooms, and you can turn one on at a time, close the door if you need to, and stay in that room so you're not using a ton of electricity. Same thing with window air conditioning units, where you can close all the rest of the doors and everybody stay in one room and use less energy because you're not using a whole house unit, so that you're not going to be using up all your battery and your solar power in one little sitting. And if anyone lives in a drier climate like we do here in Utah, you can use a swamp cooler. It barely uses any electricity. You notice the central air unit will use 3,000 to 4,000 watts of electricity every hour. But when you look at a swamp cooler, it's about 200 to 400 watts. Way different. and it uses evaporative cooling to be able to cool your house. You can either put it on your whole house, or you can have little units that circulate water through it, and as it's circulating water, it's evaporating and it's cooling your house with this, using the swamp cooler. Do you guys, everybody knows what a swamp cooler is, right? Okay, good. Okay, using a swamp cooler or evaporative cooling. Okay, additional ways to stay warm. All right, additional ways to stay cooler whenever additional ways to stay cooler when everything else fails. First of all, just stay out of the sun. Get in the shade as much as possible. First of all, just stay out of the sun. Get in the shade as quickly and as much as possible. And then take advantage of cool breezes, especially if you're wet. Okay, if you can get yourself wet and get in a cool breeze, it cools you down so much quicker. You want to wear light-colored, loose-fitting, moisture-wicking clothes. I like cotton personally. Okay, if it's really hot, cotton does a great job. You don't want cotton during the winter. You want it during the summer to be able to pull the heat away from you, especially when it gets wet. Remember that wetter is better. Remember that wetter is better through evacuation. Let me try that again. Remember that wetter is better. This is evaporative, and this is also conductive cooling. Get wet often. Jump in a pool if you need to. Take cool showers. Put a wet bandana or a hat over your head to cool down your head. Take a spray bottle and just use the mist to be able to cool yourself down. Wear some damp wristbands. Okay. Take some clothes or some wristbands. Just get them all wet and put them on your wrists where your blood is circulating. Okay, put it on your neck, something cold on your neck like a damp towel. You can put it in your arms, armpits, you can put it in your armpits and your groin to be able to cool down things even quicker. Anything you can do to get wet during hot days is better. And obviously, you're going to want to reduce indoor and outdoor activity during peak hot hours. And like we talked about earlier, get underground, get in basements, get anywhere where it's naturally cooler. Okay. And this goes almost without saying, but try to find the coolest place in your house to sleep. And that's obviously going to be in lower places, on north sides in the northern hemisphere. Anywhere that's cooler, you're going to want to use that as your sleeping spot. So you might need to move out some furniture and put in some beds in that room, for example, especially if you can open up windows on the north side at nighttime and keep things even cooler at night. This is a cool little one. Bamboo. Bamboo has fibers. It's breathable. It's just awesome. People in Asian countries will sleep on bamboo mats, and it'll pull the heat away from their bodies a lot quicker. And they're really cheap and easy to find. All right, so oh, that's what I put down. That's right. And then because your body is expending a lot of energy and because your body is losing a lot of water through dehydration, remember to drink a lot of cool drinks, especially cool drinks, to cool your body down, and make sure it's not just water, but it's electrolytes so that your body can hold on to the water because of the different minerals you're putting in as well. And like we talked about in cold weather, it's the same thing in hot weather. Stay away from alcoholic drinks because it'll dehydrate you a lot quicker. And also stay away from heavy meals like meats and really dense foods because it'll burn a lot more fuel, make you a lot more hotter. If you can stick, especially during the daytime, to cool fruits and cool vegetables, very light foods, it'll help you regulate your body temperature until the nighttime. And then this one makes me laugh a little bit, but this one makes me laugh a little bit, but avoid cooking indoors if you can during hot days. Use a barbecue outside, whatever you need to. And also, if there's any electronics that draw, and also if there's a lot of, Also, and also if there's any electronics in your house that give off a lot of heat, like incandescent lights or any type of electrical, I don't know what I'm trying to say. What gives off heat? Stereo amplifiers. Okay, there you are. Okay, and also if you have any electronics that give off a lot of heat, like incandescent lights, or if you're in a rock band and you're using big old stereo amplifiers or something like that, you might want to not run those during the daytime. Last of all, just remember, if things get that bad and you can't stay in your house, especially during the daytime, go find a shelter, go find somebody else's house, find some place to get underground, go to anywhere that is cooler to be able to help save your life. Even if it's a subway, it doesn't matter. Just get somewhere cooler during the daytime. Now, as a final exercise, I want you guys to decide, plan out, and write down the ways that you're going to keep yourself cooler during a hot emergency, long-term emergency situation. During a very hot long-term emergency situation. Now, before we end this video, I'm going to kind of open it up to you guys. Is there anything you guys would want to add to this section, or anything that you thought was interesting that maybe you didn't know about, or something that you're like, wow, I want to give that a try for myself and my family? Let's have a couple people just kind of talk a little bit about what is in your minds.
I like the one about the passive cooling,
Mm-hmm.
and you're saying you open a window in the basement.
Yep.
And then open one maybe on the next level, but have them diagonal to have that airflow go through. I think that's probably the first thing I would do.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing.
You can do that in a tent as well.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. Okay, a couple more comments. What else? What did you guys like? What would you like to implement, or any advice or thoughts that you want to share with the audience?
I really liked and appreciated what you said about how to use a fan to help cool off the place and to put it further away from the window than what we would intentionally do.
Yep. Just a lot more effective. Like, again, as a fireman, that's what we are trained to do. We put the fan far away, and these are powerful fans. It has to cover the whole doorway to be able to make it work. One more comment. Anybody else? Go ahead.
Without changing much, you could just put your head under running water for 10 seconds and have wet hair, and that cools your body a lot.
Oh, absolutely. When we're out in the desert doing shooting practice and stuff like that, just by soaking our heads, putting just pouring water on our heads, it's a huge difference. Go ahead.
The early settlers, before they had electricity or evaporative cool, regular swamp coolers or anything, they used to get sheets and such wet and hang them in their windows.
Yes.
And then the breeze would blow through as a natural swamp cooler.
Absolutely. You're right. Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. Let's go another one. Hold on 1 second.
Oh, sorry. It was my very first experience in AC in an automobile. That's exactly what my grandmother and grandpa did when we had to go over the desert.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
They would take cold or wet sheets and just stick them in the windows.
Yep.
Yep. It works.
It does.
It's a swamp cooler. Yeah, you're right. So thank you. That was a great idea. All right, let's go ahead and finish this video. And then we'll see you guys on the next video where we're talking about fuels that you can use during an emergency. Okay, this one is a quicker one. I'm just going to give you guys kind of an overview of it before we get started. You'll see, I'm going to ask you guys, what would you need fuels for during an emergency? Okay, so we'll talk about, give you some suggestions: heating, cooking, sanitation, transportation, hygiene, lighting. If there's any other ones you want to add, go for it. But I'll probably ask you guys, like, what are the things you're most concerned about? And then you can tell us, okay? And then I'll talk about the different types of 4 fuels that we'll need, and then we'll whip through those pretty fast, okay? Okay, we're back on the next video where we're talking about fuel sources. And fuel sources can be used for a whole bunch of different things, including heating and cooking and sanitation, transportation, hygiene, lighting. So many things can be used with fuel. Like, so many things, there's so many things you can do with fuel. So I'm going to ask you, let me try this again. So I want to ask you guys, maybe a few of you, what are the things that you would want fuel for personally the most, whether it's anything on this list or anything you want to add to this list. Do we have the microphone? Did we lose the microphone? Oh, sorry. Let me try that again. I'm going to start over. Okay. So let me ask you guys, what are the things that you're most concerned about to have enough fuel to be able to prepare for long-term emergencies? What would you want to use fuel for?
I'd want to be able to run a generator.
Awesome. Okay. A generator. Cool. In fact, in the next class I'll be teaching, probably coming up next week, I'll be talking about lighting and energy and generators and everything else. So I have some really good advice on that. So I'd like to pass along. What else would you guys want fuels for? What are your biggest concerns? Let's go back here and then up here.
Heating water.
Heating
Just
water?
Just to keep clean.
Yeah, totally.
Wash my
Sanitation.
hair once in a while. that
Yeah,
kind of thing.
totally. Have a warm shower and bath and everything else. Go ahead.
You're gonna want something to well, with me, I wanted battery backup for my solar.
Yeah.
Because we have like 8 freezers full of meat.
Totally.
And there's
Yeah.
no way to keep that frozen if you don't have a way to keep it cold.
Yeah. Yeah.
Same with warm. We finally got a decent solar system, and I've been looking at ways other than our electric stove downstairs, which uses tons and tons of electricity.
Yeah.
If you get a what's the word I'm looking for? Just a portable
Like a power unit.
But it's a magnetic
Oh,
stove.
got it. Okay.
Induction stove.
Yeah, induction
Get a
stoves.
portable induction stove. They don't use, they're 110. They don't use
Yeah.
hardly any electricity.
Yeah.
And you can cook a lot on those. So those are a couple things that.
Absolutely.
that we were
In
doing.
fact, induction stoves. So we went into that in another video. I'll just explain that a little bit more because it's good as a refresher. It uses magnets to be able to heat up things. So if you have a metal pan and you have an induction magnet going, we use them in production, for example, to heat and melt things. But they're just awesome for emergencies because you're going to use less energy and be able to heat things up pretty quickly on your pans. Let's go maybe one or two more. What would you guys need fuel for during an emergency? What type of things are you most concerned about?
For me, food.
Yeah,
I just love
awesome.
food.
Yeah, food. For some reason, we need it. I don't know why. For some reason, we got to keep using it, right? Keep eating, right? Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and go a little bit further. There's 4 types of fuels that we're going to be talking about. When it comes to emergency situations, you want to consider solid fuels, liquid fuels, gaseous fuels, and then there's also alternative fuels where I'll give you some really good ideas. If you cannot figure out how to get fuels during an emergency, there's always ways you can make fuels during emergencies. So first of all is solid fuels. Before I give you the positive and negatives of solid fuels, you guys give me the positives and negatives. What's the bad things about solid fuels, firewood, coal, any of these things? What are the negatives and positives? Let's start with the positives. What are the positives about solid fuels? Let's go ahead and take just a few of you. Let's start over here.
They heat really well.
Yeah, and quickly, right? Heat well and quickly. What else? Let's go. Who else? Solid fuels like firewood and everything else.
They're easy. They are easy to store.
Easy to store, right? Okay, what else? Let's go one more. Say again.
It lasts. It
Yeah.
has the coals, so it lasts a while.
Yeah, they last for a while, huh? Yeah, go ahead.
I like that charcoal needs no container. Could be divisible. You could give someone, a neighbor, a bag or bucket of charcoal, and they could use it as they wish. Whereas propane, unless you have a small tank to put it in, you can't trade that very easy.
Sometimes. So let's go a little bit further on this. What are some negatives about solid fuels? What are some negatives?
Taking up the room to store them.
Yeah. Yeah, and you put them too close to the house like firewood, you can light your whole house on fire if something happens, right?
When you burn them, they give you bad gases. So you got to have a well-ventilated area.
We can't just burn them in the house very easily unless you have a way of getting the gases out, right?
They don't last forever.
They
They're
don't.
expendable.
Yeah, exactly. Unless you have a way of replenishing them with woods nearby and everything else, right?
Jim taught us a long time ago, you need a lot of firewood to keep your house warm during the winter.
Totally.
As much as the size of your house.
Oh, totally. Like burning all the time, right, to keep things warm. And so I love a lot of stuff Jim teaches on that. I'm going to go a little bit further on that, actually a little deeper on that in the video coming, or in some of the slides coming up, where I'm going to teach a couple big principles along those lines. Any other ones you guys want to talk about before I go into it? Awesome. So positives are, it has a great shelf life. Okay, amazing shelf life. You can store this stuff away for decades, and most of it's going to work just fine. It's often plentiful. Okay, you can find it around. You can break apart tables and chairs and anything you need to be able to burn things. Solid fuel includes trash. I mean, there's so many things that are included in solid fuels. It's easy to use. You know how to light it, right? Most people can light something. And the negatives are you can smell it from a long ways away. So in an emergency situation when everybody's freezing and you're warm and toasty and you're burning, these solid fuels, people can smell that. Okay? If you're burning it outside, they can see it. They see the light. Okay? They see the fire, right? They see the flickering inside your house. And it makes you a target in some places. Not all the time, but it makes you a target in some places. And you need ventilation, like we talked about. Now, by the way, just an FYI from our fireman training, where we talk about the, what creates a fire, right? You got to feel the heat, all the different things that create a fire. What's interesting is it's not the wood that's burning. It's not the solid fuel that's burning. What's burning? It's the vapors. Yeah. When your couch is on fire, your couch is not on fire. It's the vapors from the couch that's on fire. Does that make sense? So it's just a little tidbit of information for you guys. Let's go through some of this. Let's go through some of the different types of typical solid fuels that we could use during an emergency. First of all is traditional firewood. And by the way, with the traditional firewood, if you can get, let me try that again, sorry. My throat is getting tired. Yeah, let me get a little bit of water. That's a good idea. First of all is traditional firewood. You can get that anywhere to start out an emergency, but it goes quickly. If you're going to be doing that, try to get some of the more dense woods like oak or maple or hickory, which will burn hotter and longer. Now, if you're going to be efficient with it, remember how we were talking a little bit about using the wood burning stove, right? If you want to put one of those in there and start burning it, and you can use it to heat water, to cook food, to all the different things you can do with it, I would recommend getting yourself a stove fan. These things are the coolest in the world. I mean, it's awesome. We take these camping when we're glamping, camping, whatever we're doing. We take our little wood burning stove, put it in our big 20-foot tent, and my family and everything, we stick one of these on top of here. And when it warms up, it doesn't require any electricity. When it warms up, it starts blowing the fan and blows it into the whole tent, and it's pretty awesome. So that's just a little tidbit of information to share with you. Can you get that on the video? Are you able to see that from there, Kyle? Okay, awesome. So that's just a little tidbit of info to share with you guys. So the next thing you would want to consider is pellets. They're just compressed wood, compressed anything, biomass, anything. But it makes it so it's more compressed, so it burns longer with the pellets. Solid fuels like dried peat, which is basically the precursor for coal. Peat is great. It's very condensed. It can burn for a long time. It's hot and everything else. And then obviously there's charcoal and lump charcoal, okay? Now, what's the difference between charcoal and lump charcoal? You guys all know what charcoal is, right? You can do charcoal with additives in it, lighter fluid and everything else, or just natural charcoal. But you also have what's called lump charcoal, and I'll show you an example of this. This is one that I did right here. Do you see that? Okay, where you start a little fire, then you basically limit the amount of oxygen going in, and it slow burns. And all charcoal is, all this is wood that you basically pre-charred. And now all you have to do is light it and it burns for a long time. You see that? It looks like wood. Do you see that? So I just made a bunch of it for myself. The other thing you can consider is actually coal, okay, real coal. Now, there's good and bad to coal. In fact, a lot of this stuff, you got to understand, if you don't protect it well, it can oxidize. You can lose your fuel or it won't burn as well. So if you're going to be storing any of this, put it in a, a gasket sealed bucket or some way of keeping the oxygen from getting into it, the moisture and everything else. We had, like, this is my collection of coal. I got a bunch of coal, but I just think it's kind of fun. There was somebody here that was burning coal. Can't remember who it was. You guys. Okay. Do you want to talk a little bit about your experience? Because you'll validate a little bit of the stuff. My concerns with coal.
Coal doesn't like light or air
When you're storing it.
when you're storing it.
Exactly. So you want to keep it from oxidizing.
I had some really old, and I had a piece that big, and I had a hard time getting it to light.
To light, exactly. And also, when you do light it and you start burning it, what happens?
It stinks.
A lot of soot.
It puts a lot of heat off. It's dirty. There'll be a lot of ash.
Yep.
And everybody will know you're burning it.
Oh, everyone will smell it.
Everybody.
Yeah, everybody will know you have coal. And
tremendous amount of heat, though. You probably wouldn't want to burn it in that stove.
It would probably ruin that stove.
It'd go right through the bottom.
Yep, it's so hot that if you don't have the right stove, it'll actually burn things. And you have to have the right grate underneath and everything. I mean, like, you probably had that experience as well, is my guess, right?
Well, I have fire brick in my stove, and
Okay.
it will, if you let it get down there on that fire brick, it will crack it.
Yep, that's how hot this stuff gets. So you got to be real careful with this. Thank you for sharing, by the way. I'm going to give you my personal opinion. I'm not a big fan of solid fuels for emergencies, especially because of safety reasons, replenishment, and everything else. I'm going to go through a bunch of fuels, and I'm going to give you guys my recommendations again and what you should do. Remember, fuels, a lot of times, if you're going to be heating a house or whatever else, just understand that during a cold winter, as much as you try to heat your house, unless you do a lot of the stuff I was talking about, where you go off grid and create a really special house that keeps your house super warm or cool, depending on winter and summer, right? Unless you do that, most traditional houses are not going to get warm enough during a cold winter. If you don't have the right clothing, like we talked about, you keep yourself warm, okay? You don't worry about warming the house. You're just going to go through so much fuel. So when you look at this, and we're talking about these solid fuels and everything else, you got to understand that if you're trying to heat a home the whole time, you're going to go through a ton of fuel, so just dress right. Don't waste the fuel. Dress right. Use the fuel for cooking, for sanitation, like heating water, stuff like that. Just use it very wisely. And if you're in a place where people can't smell, okay, and it could put you in danger, just stay away from solid fuels. So that's where we get into liquid fuels. That's the next one. With liquid fuels, the positives are it's high energy density. There's a lot of dense energy, okay? It's easy to transport, and it's also very versatile. You can use it for lighting, for cooking, for transportation, to run a car, everything else. What are the negatives? Safety risks. If you're storing gasoline, for example, or diesel, or whatever else, you're taking a chance at causing a fire in your house, or fumes, or somebody getting sick, or spilling it over, or whatever else. You also have shelf life concerns, because a lot of the liquid fuels will go bad quicker than solid fuels, obviously. Okay, some liquid fuels will last a long time, but most of the time they're going to go bad quickly. And also, they're dependent on the supply chain. So you're not going to typically make your own liquid fuels. So if you can't get them in the store, what are you going to do? You're going to have to go to solid fuels or something else, right? Liquid fuels include gasoline, which can get a bigger... Let me try it again. Liquid fuels include gasoline, which is supposed to have about a 6 to 12 month shelf life if you don't add an additive to it. Diesel, which has about a 1 to 2 year shelf life without an additive. Then there's kerosene, which has a longer shelf life, about 5 years plus, right? And you can go longer than 5 years, but they give it about a 5-year shelf life. And then there's lamp oil, which basically is refined kerosene. And you can burn this for hours and hours and hours for light if you need to. If you're going to use alcohol, I like denatured alcohol. I think I brought one here. Yeah, I did. So this right here is denatured alcohol. Okay. See that? And I think, did I click on it? I did. Sorry. This is denatured alcohol, or in other words, ethyl alcohol or ethanol, if you've heard of that. This is what this is. And it has an amazing shelf life. Did I? Except in your car. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. That's the problem. You want. That's a very, very good point you're bringing up, because if you don't leave this sealed, you notice right here, I keep this sealed until I have to use it, because I don't want water getting in it. Okay. I want to make sure I preserve it until I need it. So you brought up a really good point about water entering into it. So thank you, from humidity and everything else. In fact, I think I'll just do this for fun while we're here. I've got different liquid fuels, and I'm going to burn them for you in just a minute. I'll put them out here, and I'll just show you some different burners. But let's see if I have anything else I want to talk about first. Gaseous fuels, liquid fuels. And I don't think I talk about them in this. Nah, I didn't. So anyways, I'll just do this for fun. So we got the denatured alcohol. You got the canned heats. There's two different types of canned heats out there. There's the sterno, the gel, and then there's the liquid. I like the liquid the most. And I'll show you guys this just so you can see the difference. You guys want me to light this and show you the fire? Okay, hold on. Where did I put the, there it is. Okay. So just to give you a feel, I'm going to do alcohol. This is an alcohol stove right here. And let's see if I got that. Okay, so it's going. That's really hot. And you'll see a flame in just a little bit here. Here's the liquid flame, and that'll get pretty big. And then this is the gel right there. And the gel lights super fast. So you'll see, do you see the flame? It's hard to see probably in the camera, but also there's some gel on this lid right here. And I can light this super quick just by doing this. Okay. Oh, it's already gone. It's already going. You can barely see it. But there's just a little bit of gel on the lid, and I lit it super fast. Now I'm going to give you a piece of advice. If you ever have this lid right here with gel, and you do the guy thing where you're trying to put it out really quick with your hand, don't do that, okay? Ask me how I know it. Okay? That gel actually goes on your hand, and it just starts doing a fire on your hand. And I did this before, and I was like, ah! And my kids were like, Dad, figures. And so my daughter, she's like, can I see your burn? I'm like, yeah, thanks. But it's burning. I mean, you can feel it. It's just crazy. You can see it from there. But you'll notice right here, do you see how much bigger this flame is on this gas, this liquid canned heat? This right here will go for 6 hours. This is used to cook or keep food hot at banquets and everything else. They put it underneath and keep things hot. But you can actually use this to cook with during an emergency if you need to. You can use it to warm a room with if you need to. You can put it under here. Remember I was telling you, you can do this and just heat up this brick if you need to and use that. Use this as a heat source later. There's so many different things you can do with these right here. So I thought it'd just be fun to show you guys. Was that fun? Yeah, you like that, huh? Okay, let me just do this the right way. Extinguish it. Like, oh, with the gel especially, right? Use my hand again, yeah. But yeah, they're pretty fun. So liquid fuels. All right, let's go ahead and go to the next one, which is gaseous fuels. The positives here are it's clean and burning. The positives are that it's clean, burning, and efficient. It has a longer shelf life, and it's versatile. You can use it for heating, light, cooking, and a whole bunch of other things. The negatives are it has a high initial cost to get implemented, put into your house or whatever. It can explode, or you can have problems with leaking, like if you're doing propane or some type of butane or whatever, you got to be careful, okay, that things aren't rusting and falling apart. And also there could be a problem with supply chain, to being able to get it for the long term. Again, these fuels are typically short-term solutions. That's why throughout the whole course, I've been teaching you guys how to cook with solar, how to cook with retained heat. Okay, there's so many things you can do so that you're not using up fuels all day long, and it gets tiring and it gets tedious trying to find more fuels. So I'm giving you options for short-term emergencies that you can implement for longer-term emergencies if you need to, but just remember there's better options out there. Propane is my favorite way. Just to let you guys know ahead of time, without having to waste a ton of energy here, if I were to tell you what type of energy, or if I were to tell you what type of fuel to save up for emergencies, I would just say propane for the short term. Okay, I've got a bunch of tanks at home, like just a ton of tanks. I talked to the propane filling stations and asked the people who had been there long, and I said, what's the oldest tank that you've ever seen with propane in it and it was still good? And one of them said 25 years. I said, that's awesome. Okay, as long as it doesn't leak or anything else, right? You can use propane for a long period of time. You can get these big, gigantic propane tanks and put them outside your house. Now, the question I get almost every single time when they see these big tanks is, should I bury it? You guys got it. Like almost all of you. That was fine. That was like in unison. That was pretty good. Should I bury it or not? What are your thoughts on that? Okay, let's get a microphone.
If you got a tank that size and you live in a city, they're not really going to like that. You cannot do that if you're in any type of a city along the front.
But you go to the suburbs and
if you're out in the county and there's no neighbors, then you can do that.
Yeah, you got a lot of people. Like I go through a lot of areas around Utah, and I just see them house after house after house, but not in the cities. You're right.
And those little tanks right there, you can't get them filled after they're 12 years old.
Yeah.
They will not refill those.
Yeah, but they will store for a long time as long as the seals are good.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I'm going to also recommend you don't do is don't go out to the desert with these propane tanks and stick them in a fire and get far away with a gun, a rifle, a really high-powered rifle, and shoot it while it's in the fire. Ask me how I know that. Oh, far. And the funny thing about it is we were really far and you could feel the heat. Like you could feel the heat that far away. It was pretty awesome. I mean, pretty horrible. Don't do that. Just don't do it. Oh, I'm so glad. My mom's still glad I'm alive. I mean, like the things I did growing up, I haven't told my mom half of them. Like I just can't. I can't get myself to do it.
Hey,
Mom, I hope you're not
hey,
listening.
Pyro, is this why you're a fireman?
Exactly. Yeah, I have lots of practice, right? Where was I? We were talking about something. What was I talking about? Oh, propane. Say, yeah. So here's my suggestion on it. Any other thoughts on burying it?
Well, just check the ordinances.
Ordinance is a big thing, right?
And I'll do it at night, I guess, and run the line, and you're
Yeah.
okay. But your city fire marshal's not going to like you.
Yeah. You got to do it right. If you're going to do it, like for example, where I'm trying to go off grid, if I wanted to, I would bury one of these, especially in a cold climate, because what happens is because of the cold, it makes it less efficient. And if you can bury it and make sure that no water gets to it and ruins the seals and rust and everything else, you have it temperature regulated underneath. Plus it looks nicer. Plus nobody knows you have it. And they can't come and take it, right? They can't come and break it or blow it up or shoot it with a fire underneath, right? Which is dumb. And never do that, okay? Anyway, let's go to the next one, which is butane. Butane is very similar. It's a liquid petroleum gas, just like petroleum or propane is LPG, right? Same thing, okay? But butane doesn't work as well in colder locations. It's safer for inside of the house and everything like that. Propane and both of them are good for inside of the house. You can do both of them. But I'm just not a huge fan of butane. If I had to pick between propane and butane, it's propane. It's just easy. Natural gas, okay, like methane, LNG, liquid nitrogen gas or compressed nitrogen gas. I'm sorry, liquid natural gas or compressed natural gas, LNG, CNG. This typically is going to require the city to be bringing it to your house. So it's good if you have city natural gas. A lot of people have those big generators outside that can do propane, natural gas, and a whole bunch of other things. Not a bad idea if you have that during an emergency. And then this is an up and coming one, it's hydrogen. You can actually create hydrogen at your house. And if you look at it, more and more people are doing this. The hard part about it is how do you contain the nitrogen? So they're building all these big tanks and everything, and it's just really hard to make nitrogen. You got to have all these crazy ingredients like water. Oh, that's it. Just water. Isn't that crazy? So you get electrolysis going, a electric chemical reaction, and all of a sudden you have hydrogen fuel. So it's another one to consider for your emergency situations if you can get a system that does it. All right, alternative fuels. The positives here are that it's renewable and off-gridable. So these renewable fuels, or these alternative fuels I'm talking about, are things that you can actually implement during an emergency if you need to, and you can use them for long periods of time. So the renewable, off-gridable, that's a word I created, by the way, off-gridable. Good waste utilization. So good waste utilization, so you can use things around you, waste that you normally would throw away or get rid of, you can actually use it to create fuels. It's versatile, so you can use it for heating, light, transportation, and so much more. The negatives are there's a steeper learning curve to doing this stuff. Most people won't want to do it because it's just difficult, right? Sometimes. It's less efficient, typically, than other fuels that are built to burn better. And you have to gather the fuel supplies often to be able to keep using that type of fuel. So I'll give you a few of these so you know what I'm talking about. This is a this is biogas creation. This right here, this picture, shows you that you can use grass cuttings, you can use food waste, you can use manure, you can use human waste. Okay, you can use a lot of different things to be able to create methane. So when my wife and I were down in Costa Rica, we went to a place called we went to a place called Rancho Margot. Let me try that part again. So when my wife and I went down to Costa Rica, we went to a place called Rancho Margot. And there they had all these renewable energy sources. And it was just an amazing thing to walk around and see everything. And what they would do is they would take the animal poop, okay, and they would spray it down into these holes. Okay, so the poop, the pee, all that stuff, technical terms, they would put it down into the holes and they would go down the hill and go to this pool where they would be eaten up by whatever bacteria, whatever, create the methane gas. And then it would create pressure in this. You can see the picture where they have this big balloon on the left-hand side and this big balloon green black thing on the right-hand side, where it creates pressure because the methane is pushing out on it. And because it creates pressure, it automatically pushes the gas out to be able to use for heating, cooking, and everything else just by using natural stuff. And you can get this for homes and everything else if you need to. Let's get a microphone right here.
I also saw a bio way to heat water is they have these barrels full of poo.
Yeah.
And they had copper tubing in it where the water ran through.
I have I think it's coming up pretty soon. I'll show you that.
That was really cool.
Yeah, if you want to see that, that's a really good thing as well. Thank you. Another thing you can do is remember animal or vegetable fats are burnable. So if you get yourself some tallow from some cows or some lard from some pigs, right? Or you just get butter or whatever, all of this stuff is flammable. So you can make candles out of your butter at home. Okay? You can make biodiesel fuel, and it's a small learning curve, and you have to have the right supplies at home to be able to create it. But you can get dirty vegetable oil, you can get lard, you can anything that is oil or grease, and you can create diesel fuel that actually can be used to run cars, right? It can actually be used in different types of heating and cooking, whatever else, if you needed to. And any cowboy would know this one right here. You can take some cow pies or some dried grass or corn cobs that are all dried out, anything, sawdust bricks, anything that's organic that you can burn, you can create a fuel out of it for the long term. Just be creative. Pioneers did it, you're right, absolutely. Makes your food taste better, doesn't it? Yeah. And then you can get creative and you can make paper logs, trash. You can soak water, paper with water, pieces of water, a newspaper, and just soak it into a brick, let it dry, and you got yourself a log. There's all these different things you can do. Now, this is the one you brought up, which I love. This was what we saw in Rancho Margot as well. And what they did is if you get the right mixture of nitrogen and carbon, that composts basically nitrogen green, carbon brown, right? So you let your, like for example, at our house, we have a composting station, okay? What I'll do is I'll let the green leaves fall from the trees and I won't rake them until they're totally brown, because now I created the carbon, and I take those green leaves and stick them in my pile, and I get the right carbon, and then throw in the green grass to get the nitrogen. You get the right mixture of those two and mix it up really good. You get some pretty hot stuff. And it gets to the point where you literally can put, I went to one, when Rancho Margot, they had the formula perfect. And I put my hand in there, it would burn you. Like, it's that hot. That's why it can catch on fire and burn down all these different places, because it can get that hot. Okay. Now what they ended up doing is they ended up creating, you can see on this picture right here on the left-hand side, you'll see that there's these tubes, and they have different areas. So in the back there, you can see it's all filled up with composting, and it's starting to decompose and heat up, and then they keep adding to it. And in the front side, they're clearing it off to get ready for another group of, or another bunch of composting to be put on there. Now, as it breaks down and heats, they put water through those coils, and it heats up the water so hot that you can go to the right here, and they have all their showers and their pools and their hot tubs and everything heated naturally with compost. Isn't that cool? Isn't that amazing? So there's all these different ways you can do it. I'll give you one more that's just unconventional, but some people live close to hot pots. Here in Utah, for example, there's a lot of hot pots. And houses will be sometimes pretty close. If you needed to, you can, ahead of time, before an emergency, pipe a couple 100 yards to a hot pot, and you got a little pipe there. If you ever do need to, bring it into a house and heat up a flooring, right? Or do radiant heating, where you put one pipe next to another pipe, put the spring water, hot water through close to the clean water pipe, and heat up that pipe next to it. There's so many things you can do to be creative. So the reason I bring this up right here is because you need to think outside the box during an emergency. You have to think, what else can I do? So in your homes, in your areas, everywhere around the world, anybody listening to this, what can you do to use natural resources nearby you to be able to help heat up or fuel or cook with during an emergency if you ever needed to? This is one more right here that I'll wrap up with, is thermal or passive solar using the sun. We're going to talk about in the next video a little bit more about electricity and solar electricity, like we mentioned a little earlier. But there's a lot of things we can do it. So just to keep things really simple, my suggestion is, if you're going to do short-term fuels, get some propane and put it aside for short-term emergencies. If you're going to use fuels for long-term emergencies, my best suggestion is solar. And we'll go more into that in the next video, where we talk about solar and how you can use it.
Just one comment.
Yeah, go ahead.
How many of those 5-gallon propane tanks can you have at your house? It's related to how many barbecuers you have.
There you are.
You've got one barbecue, you're one of those.
Yeah.
How many of those can you have in your garage? You shouldn't have any. If you're going to have them outside and you're going to have a little spare to go around, make sure it's supposed to be in its own little area and locked and with air getting to it.
Yeah.
But if you've got like 10 of those for an emergency,
you got to be careful.
Not talk to the fire marshal. He will not treat you well.
I'm probably not the best example.
I'm going to say, you mentioned it, and I have a friend that's got 50 of them.
Yeah, I think they're smart. But yeah, remember I told you about blowing up and feeling that heat? They can be dangerous. Remember I told you there is some negatives? Okay. Yeah. You got to be real careful never to ever have a chance to blow up or let it gas off.
You can have those if they're attached to an RV. You can have 1,000 gallons if it's attached to an RV, and it's that way. One other thing you're still recording. Maybe you should. Another real good liquid fuel.
Yeah.
How many people change their own engine oil in their cars? Probably not very many here.
Exactly.
Let me tell you.
Use the oil.
That's a great fire starter.
Use the oil
for wet wood or coal.
Absolutely.
It's not explosive.
This is exactly what I was telling you.
Hot.
This is where you're thinking outside the box. This is where you're using your noggin to be able to come up with solutions.
I
And you're
just
right,
didn't-
oil is amazing.
I just didn't want to have her sit here and listen to that because I changed some oil and she asked me where it went and I couldn't tell her.
Yeah, exactly. I'm glad you and your wife are sitting next to each other right now.
It's going to be a long ride home.
Oh, too funny. So
Fire though, wall was warm. Oh yes.
yeah, let's go with one more comment back here.
Any comment about diesel shop heaters?
I don't know enough about diesel shop heaters. in all
Everybody's a
reality.
mechanic. They all have them.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know either. I just work for a place we have shops, and I know
Yeah.
that that's where I take my motor oil. If
Yeah,
they're
I
disposed of
don't
it.
have an answer for that. Yeah.
All right.
They run number 1 diesel in them. Don't get more kerosene here.
Is it kerosene?
Yeah, kerosene or number 1 diesel.
Okay.
But yeah, those are good, effective heat. Now they're outdoor. Don't close the shop up and run that thing. 'Cause carbon monoxide will get you,
Okay.
but they're very nice in an open
And they're run
shop.
with kerosene, is what you're saying.
Yeah, kerosene or number 1 diesel.
Okay, cool. Thank you for answering that. Yeah, there you are. That works. Awesome. Okay, so to wrap up this video, we're going to have everybody who's watching this video online decide what types of fuels that you're going to want or need for your types of emergencies that you're preparing for, and how you're going to store them, how much you need of them, and or how are you going to find that type of fuel during a longer term emergency. So go ahead and do that before we get to the next video, and I'll see you on the next video. Okay, you guys, we got through it tonight. Awesome. Thank you guys for doing that for so long. So we got some fun videos coming up. I'm going to try to put the PowerPoint together for lighting, and I want to go a lot into solar power and battery powers, hopefully next week if I can. And then after that, I want to get into sanitation, human waste management, hygiene, and trash management, which is a really fun topic. We'll go get into a lot of those as well.
Your charcoal, it absorbs moisture too. So
Yes.
If you've got a bag of charcoal,
So
2 or 3 years old.
that's what I was telling you. Put it in a bucket. Put it in a bucket, a sealed bucket if you can, with a gasket lid. Yeah.
It's a good little hack for those 5-gallon propane tanks too.
Yeah.
You can get them on. People just give them away because they.
Oh, you go to the dump and they got them all over the place.
Yeah, you take
and
them
then,
and go
and
to a
they'll take
propane exchange.
Yeah.
For $10, $20, you can get a new tank. But look in that cage. Make sure you look because they have old tanks in there that only have a year on them, and they've got brand new tanks.
Oh, you're kidding.
Yeah, so you look at the date on them and you say if they've been recertified or not and when the date was. So make sure you're getting a good tank that's going to last you for a while. But it's so cheap. If you buy a new tank, they're $50, $60.
Yeah.
But if you get them this way, they're $10 or $20.
So for those people online, can you get the microphone? I'm going to have everybody online hear that because that's really good advice. I like that a lot. Go ahead and give that to him. So anybody who's watching still, that was really cool.
Thanks. Just if you're out buying if you want to get those 5-gallon or 10-gallon propane tanks, the 5 gallons are really popular. So there's a lot of them around. And if they expire, people don't want them. They're the dump. Throw them away. They're on KSL. You just take them to a propane
And KSL is a
exchange.
classified ads.
Oh, sorry.
by the
Yeah.
way.
So you take them to the propane exchange. You can do it at Walmart is one of the cheaper ones. All Cal Ranch, all those guys have propane exchange. So you go there and for $10 to $20, you can get a tank full of propane that's been recertified. But
Yeah.
just look at the dates and make sure you're getting a newer tank because sometimes they have older tanks in there that might only be good for a couple of years. Then you can have them refilled at your will. But it saves you a lot of money that way.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. That's really cool.
It's right on the top of the edge. It's right on the top edge of the tank is the date. You'll see it. And if it's been recertified, they kind of X out the old date and they'll put a new date on there, and it's stamped into the metal of the tank.
That's great advice. Thank you for sharing that.
There's a guy in Layton on the recertifier for
Awesome.
about
Thank
3
you.
minutes, and he only charges $5. And then
Oh.
he fills it.
That's awesome.
Layton.
That's awesome. You guys, thank you so much for sticking it out. That was a long night, and you guys did amazing. Everybody online, thank you so much. I know it was tough because you couldn't see the screen, and that's really tough. So thank you for sticking it out, and you guys are awesome. I'll hopefully have this stuff edited in the next few weeks, and I'll put it up there for everybody who's a Thrivalist Master Course member, and you'll be able to watch the cleaned up version of everything. Okay. Thank you guys again. Thanks.
Marcelo, which night next week do you think you'll be
I'm
filming?
hoping Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Oh, really? No, Thursday's my fireman training, so it works out perfect. So yeah, so Wednesday.
We put out an email for that.
Yeah, I'll plan on putting out an email for that. So thank you everybody. Appreciate it.